Hello, and welcome back for a brand new episode inside the TARDIS of Fake Nerds Watch. We are finally closing the gap on our recap specials on all of Doctor Who prior to 2023. So this is going to be a doozy of an episode. We are coming in with Capaldi and Whitaker, the 12th and the 13th Doctors, respectively. We are going to be going through their episodes, talking about moments, characters, all that kind of stuff. And I'll be up front and say that this is some of the best and some of the worst of all of Doctor Who. So here we are, at least modern Who, I'll say. And I am, of course, Sparkz Whitty. I'm joined by my lovely companions, Brandon T. McClure.
Hello, I'm here in the TARDIS as well. My favorite TARDIS design.
Mine too, 100%. We'll talk about that for sure. And Xander Hake.
Hi. 12, wonderful number. Easily divisible, just the curves, everything. 13, unlucky 13, odd number. There's correlations, I'm just saying.
I am really, really happy that Doctor Who is back and that Doctor Who is still going, and I really never want it to go away.
Yeah.
And I also, at the same time, think there's a compelling argument that maybe it all should have ended at Capaldi. I'm not saying I agree with it, but I think you can make a reasonable argument.
Yeah, not forever. Not forever. Just like maybe take a break. Maybe 10 years.
Yeah. Here's the thing that I want to get right up top. We will be, as you already said, as we've already alluded to, we will be pretty harsh on the era that Jodie Whitaker occupies. None of it is because of her as the Doctor. It is purely writing. And I know that people are already in the comments. The one person that might click on this and be like, hey, what did you guys think of Jodie Whitaker? Oh, you're just sexist assholes. No, I love her as the Doctor a lot.
Yeah, it's going to be
just sucks that she didn't get much better.
Yes. Yeah. I understand that all my upsetness that will come across during the Whitaker era is purely because I think she's wonderful. Yes. As the Doctor, and deserved a much better run that catered to her abilities that she did not get.
I loved her outfit.
Yeah, me too.
It's a great outfit. I wish Dan Tennant had showed up in it.
Me too. Now, that said, okay, look, we're just going to get right into it because we're going to start with Peter Capaldi. I just want to say,
wonderful outfit as well.
Right up top. Just like up right here, just like, and then I don't even look at that. I look at that. Just like, I, like a lot of people who started watching Doctor Who in 2005 with Eccleston and Tennant, believe that Tennant is my favorite Doctor. You know, he's kind of the one. He's the Tom Baker of this era, right? He's the one that is the most popular, is the one that's widely recognized as the Doctor, the one they wheel out whenever they need to.
If I may, he defined Doctor Who for the modern era. Like, he defined it. He was the first one to go and define it. And I feel like while Doctor Who had been around, like, I don't think it's a stretch to say that Tom Baker defined Doctor Who for that era either, because that's also the point where they really embrace, like, Gallifrey, Time Lords, all that stuff.
Yeah. But and I've always said that, like, the 8th Doctor is my favorite. That's just kind of me being a little rebellious, because, like, I really like Paul McGann as the Doctor. I really like his audio adventures. Like, I really like his audio adventures. And I really like him as the Doctor. But, like, there's always kind of like, it really is 10. And then I finished Capaldi's run. And since I finished Capaldi's run, which I did just recently, this past year, in the lead up to the new specials, to the 60th anniversary, I have been resisting so desperately the truth, the absolute unwavering truth that is Peter Capaldi is my favorite Doctor 100%. Hands down, bar none. And honestly, he clears everyone. Like, clears everyone.
I made this point when we were talking about David Tennant, where I think that David Tennant is probably my favorite actor to play the Doctor. As a performer. And I would also say after our discussion and revisiting it, and even going back and watching some of the episodes after we talked about it with Tennant in them, that I think he has some of the best written seasons and arcs, even against Capaldi's. But I echo what you're saying. I think what Peter Capaldi's Doctor is probably my favorite version of the Doctor.
And like specifically, like, I love the way Tennant flies the TARDIS. He's my favorite pilot for the TARDIS, like 100%. I love how he's like running around the console and like flipping random switches and buttons left and right and just like zipping about and like flailing all over the place. I love all that shit. I miss that shit. But like Capaldi, and like I want to be specific, like his last 2 seasons, because I actually don't like him in his first season. Not really. But his next 2 seasons like really defines what like the perfect Doctor for me. Xander, I know you feel the same.
Yeah, I feel like most doctors, probably aside from Tennant, who just is some kind of like magical beast, have a rough first season.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And, you know, a lot of that has to do with the writers figuring out the actor, figuring out a new story, the actor figuring out like, you know, the feel and the vibe and how they want to like go about things. Not that there's no good episodes in that first season.
Right.
He's got some bangers, but
Right.
like his initial introduction, like his first episode is not one of my favorites.
No.
Even like just as an episode, and especially as a like introduction to a Doctor episode, really didn't do anything for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really nervous because I really wanted to like him. So I was like, okay, please be good.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you saw glimpses of that in the first season, and after that, next 2 seasons just absolute bangers. Dips in episodes for sure, but he never. The episode might have dipped, but he never
Right.
dipped with it.
One of the things that I really like about Capaldi's first appearance on the TARDIS, which is the end of the Time of the Doctor, when Matt Smith regenerates. What's so weird about that scene is that I absolutely adore him in that scene. Like this, when he's just like, I've got new kidneys, I don't like the color. Like, which is an insane thing to say about kidneys. And like, it's so doctory. And then he's like, how do you fly the TARDIS? Like, it's like, I think we're crashing. Just one question. How do you fly this thing? And that's how you end the episode. Like, I'm like, oh shit. I'm really interested. I'm really pumped. Like, let's go. New Doctor, new at the time, new regeneration cycle. So like there was this whole kind of like unpredictability to what the Doctor is now. And then, but the episode that follows, as much as I like the Paternoster gang with Manavastra and Jenny and Strax, I love them to death.
Yeah.
The episode just isn't very good. It's just not there. And like we talked about it when we talked about the 11th Hour, which I think is the strongest regeneration episode, like first Doctor episode. This one's just not it. Yeah, I do too.
Yeah. I think this episode, the Deep Breath, which is the first one of the 8th series, is so bizarre. And it does one thing that like I've never really cared for in thinking back on it, and people have to remind me it happened because I kind of like wormhole it, which is the 11th Doctor calling Clara to tell her to stay. And I'm always been like, why this? That's so bizarre. It felt like the show was showing a lack of confidence in the audience, I guess. Like, I'm like, I just don't think this was necessary for Clara to need to stay. She needed a call.
What's so weird about that scene is like going back to like what So like very, very much how we talked about like the popularity of Doctor Who waning. Like Peter Capaldi is unfortunately where the popularity of Doctor Who started waning, outside of Britain for sure.
How the phenomenon sort of waning.
Yeah, and so like what a lot of people like contributed to that too was that people didn't think Peter Capaldi was attractive, which you're wrong. But like
That is so wrong.
Hard agree.
But Matt Smith was like seen as like Clara's boyfriend. Like the first thing, like Capaldi says, like, I'm not your boyfriend. I'm
right.
And I think that like that was like, hey, yeah, I'm no longer going to be your boyfriend anymore, but take a chance because this could still be fun. Like you didn't need that.
Yes, and I think that is also again like going back to like Moffat being reactionary. I think this is him responding to that kind of Tumblr era of Doctor Who very directly and wanting to push Doctor Who into a certain degree. And I think he overcorrected, right? There was a good intention there, but I think he way overcorrected with how grumpy he pushes Capaldi to be in this season. And I think that's an issue. I also think there's a bit of like, you kind of get it now with people with the MCU of like, Endgame was kind of it. And like the 50th anniversary was huge. And like a lot of people kind of were sitting there with Doctor Who and like, that was a pretty good run. Like, I don't know.
This is it. It's over.
Like we obviously had our qualms with some of the Matt Smith stuff, but like that 50th anniversary was hype when we were in it. Like it really was. It popped. And like
arguably still to this day more hype than the 60th.
I think it's the biggest Doctor Who's ever been still. Like Doctor Who might get there again now with like Disney money and Disney attention. I definitely like Doctor Who's like the biggest it's been for a while, but I still wouldn't say it's pushing that 50th anniversary level.
Yeah. Hey, I'm just saying.
I mean, that thing went to theaters. I know. Day of the Doctor went to theaters.
Next year, though, 20th anniversary of the show's revival. I don't know. Maybe we're doing something.
I'm not holding my breath for anything because a lot of people have pointed out like I would love all of the modern Doctors to get together, but there's almost no world where Eccleston comes back because like 4 people who are currently working on the show would have to leave.
Yeah.
And he's made that very clear, which whatever his reasons, I can't blame him for. So whatever.
No, absolutely not.
He has been like a bit chiller about everything though.
He has, but I mean, like, it was only a couple months ago that he was
recently.
Like, you get rid of those 4 people and I'll come back. And it's like, oh, one of those people is Russell T Davies, so I don't expect we see Kristen for a while. And then the other thing is that, and I respect this, and it's because we're talking about him, it's Capaldi. Capaldi has said that, like, I kind of prefer that, like, my adventure as the Doctor is over. And that sunsets just like the Doctors did in my youth, which is like, I mean, Doctors still got together for specials, and like technically like half the Doctors from your youth are still doing Doctor Who. So I don't know if your point stands, but if that's how he feels, I certainly respect it. But it would be really disappointing. It feels like you just want one story that puts all the modern era Doctors together. Even if you can't get Eccleston, then maybe everybody after.
Hey, you got 2 versions of David Tennant you can work with.
So I'm with you. I'm with you that it feels like you want something there, and I agree. But 100%, like I think Capaldi had it so rough because he's coming out of this like massive mountain of the highest heights that Doctor Who's ever experienced, and he had to put that all on his back, and I think he was ready for it, but I don't think Moffat was ready for where to go next.
Right. And I think that suffers a lot with his first season because, like, as you already mentioned, like he was the grumpy Doctor. Like there's a line that I think is kind of funny, but it kind of like goes against Capaldi's Doctor. That we later know him, and it's in the episode. Hold on, I want to be sure I have the title of it. Into the Dalek, which is actually the second episode, which I think is actually a pretty good episode. I actually like what they do with the Daleks in that episode. But there's a line that I never forget, which is Capaldi. The Doctor can't figure out what to say who Clara is, assistant, companion, whatever, and then Clara says carer, and he goes, yeah, she's my carer, she cares so I don't have to. And I'm like, where we know where the doctor where Capaldi ends up, that just feels so antithetical to who the doctor is, and just kind of feels like it's trying to be edgy for the sake of just being grumpy.
And part of, I want Xander to jump in on this, and part of what I find so tough about Capaldi's first season is that it really does feel like Moffat reactionary, and not unlike other things we've talked about and we'll talk about with choices for the doctor and the portrayal, not motivated by what's happening to the character.
Yeah.
You know, it like, not to go too far into what's going on right now in Doctor Who, but like with the 14th Doctor, there's a lot of like taking in what have you experienced recently, Doctor, and how is that affecting this version of you? And that is not what's happening here. It's the Doctor's maybe coming out of one of the most optimistic places and then turns into the grumpy Doctor, because you got Matt Smith at the end of the day, the Doctor like, I'm coming home the long way round. And to go from that attitude to this, it doesn't track what makes the character feel this way.
That was pretty good. That sounded pretty good.
Yeah, your Matt Smith wasn't bad.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, so my biggest issue with kind of the start of the series is that his character is very one-dimensional.
Yeah.
It is very, you're the old Doctor, we're switching things up. We're not going for those same kind of like romance bait stories. And I feel like he wasn't given much more than that. And I mean, you can tell that he's like really doing his best, but it feels a little directionless and it feels a little one note, because that's probably in essence all he had to go off of.
Well, what I think it is there in the text, because there's also the line like where he looks to Clara and she says, "Am I a good man?" And Clara doesn't know what to say. And there's like this whole thing with like Missy later on in the episode where he's like, "Thank you, I finally know who I am." Like there is a story in the first season that I don't think is well executed, which is that the Doctor, having lived past what a Time Lord is supposed to live, having lived past into a completely new regeneration cycle, has no idea who he is anymore, recognizes this face and is like, why do I recognize this face? Like, this is weird.
Right, yeah.
This has never happened before. And he's just kind of sitting there going like, I don't know what or who I am anymore. And there is this kind of like idea that the Doctor is having an identity crisis in this first season, but it's not. It's not as prevalent as it should be, because Moffat keeps wanting to focus on how funny it is that he's grumpy now. But so like he's avoiding the more interesting storyline within his own season.
Yeah, I think the thing that comes out of that is that there's two different things. There is the character in the story, and then there is the characterization. I feel that he is kind of one note and grumpy throughout the first few episodes. Even while that story sprinkled throughout, but is in the text. And those moments are the moments that people literally like remember and quote from the first season. Are the things like, why do I remember this face? Am I a good man? Like, those lines hit, and they hit for a reason, and they're the only thing that hits, because it's like, this is the good part.
Yeah, I think the problem with the whole face thing is that it's not resolved in this first season. It doesn't get resolved until the 5th episode, almost halfway through the next season for Capaldi. Yeah. And like, I think that's the problem with it, is that if this were part of like kind of an identity crisis for the Doctor, I could accept it if it were contained to this season. And that was part of the arc he's on to get to where we want him for the rest of his run. But that's just not what's...
Man, we don't like first seasons.
I think it's hard for me to look favorably back on this, because this is also, I think, for a lot of people, and I know this is true for Brandon, like burnout started to set in.
Yes, 100%.
Because and Burnout pretty specifically with how Moffat had been running things. And like go back to our previous special where we talked about all the things that didn't work for us about the Matt Smith run, regardless of how much we liked him or other characters inside of it.
It's linked right over there somewhere.
It's somewhere here.
Probably down there somewhere.
Maybe down here.
Yeah, because Moffat he had a way of doing things that didn't vibe with a lot of people. And certainly some of the broad strokes were amongst them.
And there's
you're coming out of that. Sorry, just real quick. And you're coming out of that and going into this. And because Capaldi has this, not just lackluster first episode, but kind of lackluster energy and personality for what you want to see in the Doctor in the moment. Like nobody who's feeling that kind of burdened by the show at that point and what Moffat's doing wants to be greeted with, now I'm just kind of angry. That's just, it made it less fun. It just made it less fun to want to watch the show. And so like the first season's a bit of a grind the first time. I've gone back since then and found like removed from being so deep in that feeling, I like it a little better. I still think it's weaker than the later seasons, but I don't think it's quite as like egregious as in my memory it was.
Yeah.
When it was first coming out and I was like, boy, this is just not what I was wanting Doctor Who to be right now.
And there's also oh my God, I'm so sorry. I know you were going. I'm still gonna go, but like I just want you to know that I know what I'm doing.
That's incredible. I love you.
There's a thing where, you know, when you see how good the show becomes, you know, even without meaning to, you are in some way comparing that first season to the rest of it, and it's also hard not to like be like, oh, you know, it's not the part that I like.
Mm-hmm. The thing that I think that exemplifies what Sparkz is talking about specifically with the, you know, the kind of Moffat burnout that happened was the episode Listen, which is basically, which is just, it's everything Moffat, right? It's the kind of like, hey, who are you actually talking to when you're talking to yourself and there's nobody around? Who's actually listening when there's nobody in the house and you're just talking to yourself and blah, blah. And like, where does all this stuff come from? And like, and it all goes back to like, oh, but actually the Doctor lived on this farm and he got scared because he saw feet at the foot of his bed or something. Blah, blah.
His feet got grabbed when he got up. Something from under the bed grabbed him.
Yeah, and it's like it's all and like what and like but that doesn't make sense because there's something physically it doesn't work. The episode just doesn't work. And I know that Moffat didn't write the episode. I want to very quickly like. Oh wait, never mind. He did write it.
Yes, he did.
No, he did.
Yeah, he did write it.
No, only him.
That he is the only credited writer on that episode. So fuck you. So like, you kind of like exemplify like, and by that point I was like, this shtick doesn't work for me anymore because you've done it too many times. You know,
I have a complicated relationship with that episode because that is one of the ones I've actually seen recently because my mother was watching all of Capaldi's and Whitaker's to get ready for the new stuff this year. So like off and on, I was seeing a lot of those seasons. And some of it I hadn't revisited, like the early Capaldi stuff for a while. And I think Listen is some of Moffat's stuff perfected until you get to the farm.
Sure.
And like you're right. Like he's revisiting concepts and things that he's done before. I just think like taken in the bottle, I'm like, this is better than those things were.
Sure, but you know, like I also like because in that episode we go to like the far future where the descendant of Danny is there.
Yes.
Like that's you're right.
And the Doctor's like, I have to know who's on the other side of the door. And Clara's like, why do you have to know? And that shit was like, that was getting to midnight area where I'm like, this is pretty good.
But it just kind of like falls. But like all that stuff, like, oh, and I hate Kill the Moon. I hate that episode so much.
Yeah, it's not a good one.
I like
really
that's not Moffat, to be fair. That actually isn't Moffat.
You liked Kill the Moon, where the moon is an egg, and then it just births another moon.
Yeah, I liked it.
Wow,
I love you, Xander. To be fair, I have not seen Kill the Moon since it first came out. So like
the
maybe I feel
argument,
differently.
Look, the argument for Kill the Moon is in the relationship between the Doctor and Clara really feeling to me like it's the first time that dynamic is changing. They've been like figuring it out until then, but I feel that the part where he like makes her make that choice and she's furious at him, but he's like, I can't be allowed to make that choice.
Yeah.
And they're like realizing that Clara as his like kind of moral compass, kind of like protege in a way, is moving into this like, these are the decisions, the kind of choices the Doctor makes, and if having it infuriate her. And this moves into the plot later on, which I'm still kind of like back and forth about, which is Clara kind of really starting to act like the Doctor and making decisions based around like wanting to be more in that vein.
Which begins in another episode that I really don't like, Flatline.
I like Flatline.
That's fair. Flatline yes! Is more free. By the way, did you? I don't know if you rewatched it, but Cyborg from Doom Patrol is in Flatline.
I haven't rewatched it, but I that's cool.
Yeah, he's the other character.
I'll real quick because you brought up Flatline. I'm just going to highlight this, which is that like I acknowledge these are not like incredible or the best episodes of Doctor Who. I do think these episodes are fun, and Robot of Sherwood works for me. I think
I like fun. Robot of Sherwood. I like that one a lot.
Mummy on the Orient Express and Flatline, which are both written by Jamie Matheson, I think are fun. Yeah. They work for me. Mummy. The one of the best visuals I think about all the time in Flatline is the TARDIS being shrunk. And Capaldi's head just coming out of it is adorable.
I do like the hand when he comes out, when he put the hand out to like move it, to like kind of like thing move it away from the train.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's some of the best gags were thought of in some of these episodes that hadn't been done in Doctor Who before, and I think they're charming and I think they're sweet. And the last one I'm going to say, and I acknowledge like it's totally just because I think it's fun. I love Time Heist.
I'm so pissed off at you because I was literally waiting to say my favorite episode in the season is Time Heist.
No, that's great. I'm so don't be pissed off. I'm so happy to hear that. We both have. I think it's my favorite episode of the season too. I think Time Heist is great. I think it's a ton of fun.
So much fun. I love it so. And the reveal,
do you know why we both love
it? It was them.
Do you know why we both love it?
Why?
The Doctor forgot enough of himself throughout the episode to forget he's angry.
You're so right.
It was like a window. It was like a window into what Capaldi could be.
You're 100% right. I really like Time Heist because like Time Heist is such a good setup, and then it reveals who actually set up the heist and everything. Man, I like that episode a whole lot. I think it's a lot of fun, and you're right. It's showing us kind of what Capaldi's Doctor is going to end up being. Because he is just being that version that he will just grow into.
And it's one of those times where like this doesn't happen a lot in the Moffat era, but where I'm like, this was really smart from like A to B to C to D. Like I just think this was well plotted, well scripted. To be fair, it's not just him writing it; it's also written with Stephen Thompson. But it still just doesn't happen that often in the Moffat era. That I'm like, I know you think you're being clever, and I actually agree with you. I think you're being clever. I think this is I think this is really, really like working. And Time Heist just is like the best version of that. Xander, any thoughts on Time Heist?
It's a heist. There's time.
Xander's like, I'm not a big heist guy.
I love heist. I'm a huge heist guy. I did really like it. I think it's just it falls in that vein of like, again, like you were saying, Doctor Who episodes that are just kind of like silly and that are just charming in like concept.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I enjoy those. That's really all that landed with me was just that, like, oh, this is fun.
I think it's just a well executed one of those. And not every Doctor Who one that's doing something like that is that well executed. And I'm like, this is like those ones where it feels really good, where you're like, I see the precision thinking on the multiple levels of how we concocted all the reveals and the mystery and all that.
Right.
And the creativity of why we need XYZ for this part of the heist and why we need blah blah blah. And I think that the execution more than anything is like, you could put any doctor or companion in that episode, and like I think it would be fun because it's just well crafted in that way, and that has a lot less to do with Capaldi and Jenna Coleman necessarily being in it, because like a decent chunk of the time they don't remember who they are. But I do think it's really really fun.
Yeah, I did really love the two-parter series or season finale.
Okay, I'm going to pause.
I did really enjoy that.
I'm going to pause you because I need to wait. I need to wait because there's one more episode I want to highlight about how much I don't like it.
Okay.
and that is In the Forest of the Night. I very much don't like that episode. It's the one where a forest springs up all around the world.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why I don't like it is because it does something that I really don't like about Moffat's run on Doctor Who, just in general, which is not something that Davies did. This is kind of where Davies and Moffat disagreed. Like when Davies introduced like a Dalek invasion on Earth, the human race just knew what a Dalek was now. They were just familiar with the fact that these are now Daleks. What Moffat did was revert to the status quo of Earth, but in a way that's just like, yeah, humans just forget shit all the time. And so In the Force of the Night is, and then he does this again later with a Bill Potts episode, which I'll talk about. That's an episode I like, by the way, but it's still, he does do this again. But
I like that episode too. The one you're referring to, we'll get to it.
Yeah. And so like he does this thing where it's like, oh yeah, so wait, what are we going to do? How people just don't remember. So what are we going to tell people about this forest? Oh, they'll forget by tomorrow. I just don't agree with that perspective of the human race. And I don't really like that kind of way of like resetting to zero after every like major episode of Doctor Who is like, it just doesn't work for me.
Totally. I think that all your points are valid. I honestly don't remember the episode very well. But I remember not caring for it.
I'm also going to mention that I forgot this was an episode.
Yeah.
You all are making my point.
So before you go to the season finale, I do want to touch on like there are two important factors about the season. One that I think is incredible and one that I think is bad. And they're just like overall season points. And one of them, the one that's bad, is the thing that really makes Capaldi hard for me in this season to get on board with as the Doctor is how much he hates Danny Pink and vocalizes it. And like it just feels so. It's like Eccleston making fun of Mickey cranked up to like 20. And like, I just can't. I'm like, why would Clara ever even go anywhere with you at this point?
But it's specifically because Danny's a soldier, which doesn't make any sense because the Doctor has known soldiers and has been very good friends with soldiers.
Yeah, it really doesn't work for me. And it falls into this like, I just don't know what good value there was out of it outside. Like it feels like it's there only to strain Clara's relationship with the Doctor, and even that's not really a story point. It's just kind of a scene filler, and it's not a good look on the Doctor. I don't like it. It doesn't feel like part of the character, and I think especially coming off of seeing relationships like Mickey or Rory into this and treating them like that, I'm like, even with the soldier thing, as you said, Brand, like it felt bad. It feels bad to look at. I don't like it.
No, it really hurts the season for me because every time it's him and Danny, and he's always saying that, oh, Danny has to be the PE teacher because he can't be the math teacher. It makes me against the Doctor in a way that I don't think was intentional and I don't think is a good idea.
Yeah. And like, unfortunately, because like because Danny is cast by an actor of color, it also feels racist at the same time, even though there's
Little
nothing
bit.
inherently racist. Even though there's nothing inherently racist in the language, it's like just the structure of it, because like it's so unwarranted, makes it feel racist. And I'm like, this is just bad. Like it just gives you bad vibes, and I'm not down with it. And I think it hurts the finale. Because of that, like Danny's involvement in the finale, I think is actively hurt by the Doctor's constant berating of him. That's me. That's how I feel about it.
What was the thing that you liked though this season?
Oh, it's Michelle Gomez. Michelle Gomez is also like, as we have the best Doctor, we might also have the best Master in Capaldi's run. I'd be willing to make the argument, because I think Michelle Gomez's Misty is brilliant.
Yeah, I want Xander to go because I don't share his love of the finale. In fact, I actively dislike it.
Okay, fair.
But I want you to go off, King.
Got it. Missy's great. I think for the first time in New Who felt, and I think maybe the only time since, even up until now, the Master felt like a character. It wasn't just, oh, here's this bad guy, here's this antagonist, here is, like kind of like cartoonishly evil, end of the world, kind of thing. It's just, oh, here's another Time Lord who's, like values and morals are just in contrast to the Doctor, but not in complete opposition to.
Yeah.
And I like the season finale a lot because I like Missy as a character. I like the introduction. I like what she brings to those episodes.
Yeah.
I think it really helped. It helped me feel more confident in the next season, because I felt like, oh, here is a new character that feels like they're really bringing a level of depth to the like rest of the cast.
Yes.
In a way that I think was sorely needed. Capaldi definitely becomes much more characterized in his interactions with Missy.
I agree with that 100%. He is having more fun with her in this season than he is with anybody else.
Yes. And it really informs the rest of the season as well. Content-wise, look, Missy being like the woman in secret, slowly setting everything up in the background, it's kind of silly. I like it.
This is the thing that Moffat does that actively like frustrates me. For whatever reason, like Missy, like there's this whole thing where like Missy has a line, and like, look, it's the Master, so she could be lying or she could not be. But there's this line where she says, I've been traveling through time, selling people on the concept of the afterlife. So like, so implying that she is the reason why peoples throughout history and throughout planets believe in an afterlife is because she has come to them and been like, hey guys, you could go to the afterlife. And like that kind of falls in the same line of like River being like, you leave the brakes on, which is why the TARDIS makes that noise.
Yeah.
Like just kind of this kind of like absolute throwaway line that fundamentally destroys and alters the reality of this show.
Yeah.
That Moffat just paid no attention to and was just like, whatever, this would be a funny thing. And that's the kind of thing, like, a lot of people like it. That's cool. It's never been the kind of thing that I liked to see from Moffat. And thank goodness he kind of like shies away from it towards later on. But like, I like the beginning of the episode a lot. Because it's Danny dies, which is horrible.
Yes.
And then Clara.
Oh my God. Clara's whole thing. Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. The opening of this episode is one of my favorite things in the era.
Yes.
Yeah. And it like
Big
Clara,
fan.
like again, like because it goes back to like what Capaldi's doctor is meant to be, what Capaldi wants his doctor to be, because he has this line kind of circulating through line. I know you saw it, Sparkz, on Twitter, where he's like, "Do you think I care for you so little that betraying me would make a difference?"
Oh my God.
Oh my God. Are you kidding me? That's an incredible line.
And like also, and not to push aside, like this was a really important Clara moment. And I do think it's one of the reasons that she's my favorite companion, because she was willing to throw every key to the TARDIS into the lava.
Yeah.
Like she was willing to go there over this, and then be devastated by it. But she did it. And like she's 100% a flawed character, but I find her really compelling in her flaws. And this is one of those moments where I'm like, Clara becomes a richer character because of this choice.
There are few scenes, I think, throughout Capaldi's run as iconic as Missy and Clara sitting together, surrounded by like unit agents, and they're like having tea at the start of the episode. And I don't know. It did so much heavy lifting.
Isn't that the opening one? Of the next season?
Season 2?
Yeah.
Oh fuck, I'm getting them mixed up. Anyway, that season is also great.
It is.
But the interactions between Missy and Clara do a lot of heavy lifting very quickly off the bat. It really like sets their dynamic early, which I like, because I'm like, cool, we don't have to trudge through this whole thing.
There's something that I really like that Capaldi does again in the beginning that I want to also highlight, which is that he has this moment where, you know, of course he's going to help Clara. He loves Clara. He'll do anything for her. And he says, and Clara's like, you're gonna help me. And he goes, every civilization believes in an afterlife. I've always meant to go take a look. Like that's the kind of like because like that feels very like Doctor, like classic Doctor to me, of like, yeah, I don't know if there's an afterlife, but I always kind of meant to see if I could find one. So now is as good a time as any.
Sure.
And I like that. I like that moment a lot. That kind of like willing to descend into hell, because like again, like it goes back to what Sparkz was talking about, like Danny Peake's inclusion into the episode. Like, I wish I could believe that the Doctor would do it for Danny, but because I think that's the intention. Like the Doctor is like, I was harsh on Danny, and I want to fix that. But that's not what's in the text of the episode, so it really kind of hurts. Even like moments that I really like of you know, doing this thing and not saying to Clara, it's dead is dead. Like I can't do anything. It's a fixed point in time.
Yes.
Like this is the first time where he's like, it's a weird kind of thing of like, I like the moment of like, yeah, let's go see if we can find an afterlife. But it also feels disingenuous because he doesn't like Danny, and there's nothing in the season that made me think he did.
I hard agree that is part of what I struggle with in it is that they just did too much damage to that relationship in the episodes prior, that it's hard for me to buy in. I do find the Master's decision to, Doctor, I made you an army. I think as a story beat, it could have been really interesting. Again, if this season were structured more around an execution, an idea that the Doctor was angry because they knew during the Matt Smith era that they had come across as a soldier. This was something that was, regardless of how much we liked it, this was something that was toted around a lot in that era. If the Doctor were trying to get away from it, and that was part of the purpose, but it keeps coming back and he's seeing that reflected in Danny. That's why he doesn't like Danny. And then you get to the button of the season being the Master being like, made you an army, heard you wanted to be a soldier, heard you wanted to be a commander of war. And the Doctor resenting that and like the Master kind of shoving their face in it. That would have been something. Yeah. It's just not, as you said, it's not in the text.
Yeah. And like, again, to echo both of your points, Michelle Gomez is wonderful. She is incredible as the Master. And I see. I never quite agreed with changing the name. It's kind of cute. Like I kind of get that. Like it's cute that the Master would do it, but I always kind of wish that she would call herself the Master. But I really like her. Yeah,
May
go
I,
ahead.
just because you brought that point up, may I make an argument for why ultimately I like it?
I'm not willing to die on the hill. Go for it.
I think it works so much because it feels like from moment one, Michelle Gomez is, whether it was Moffat's intention or not, set on the path for where she ends up at the end of the Capaldi run, which is that she is the first one who really feels like she reciprocates the desire for the connection with the Doctor again.
Yes, that's what I was about to
And
say.
and in chasing that, her subconsciously rejecting the Master moniker and going with something else to kind of push herself away from that identity. I'm not saying it was intentional, but as a read, it kind of works for me where
Sure.
she ends up. I feel like her embracing, like, I kind of don't want to be that version of myself anymore, even if she wasn't
Sure.
aware of it.
And you also brought up something that I really like that I was trying to get to, which is that what I love about her is that she, for whatever reason, this regeneration has caused a change in the Master to be like, no, I actually do miss you. I can't change. I've so set in my ways. Maybe I can help you come to my side, and then we could be
Right.
friends again.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that interpretation of the Master, and I think, and I truly believe this after the next version of the Master. I think it was truly the only and last place you can go with the Master. This idea
Yeah.
of like the Master choosing to find a way to reconnect the bridge between him and her and the Doctor and being friends again, because we've been told even in Classic Who that they were schoolmates, they were friends on Gallifrey, and they split, and the Doctor has always regretted that, has always wished that they could be friends again,
And has
but the
often
Master,
reached back towards the Master saying, like, please just come with me.
yeah,
I swear if you come with me, it'll be better.
and the Master has always rejected that, has always
Yes.
said, no, I can't do that. But this is the first version of the Master that is like, okay, I'm willing to hear you out this time. And what's so interesting about the Master is that um so the last time we saw the Master, it kind of fits, right? Like the last time we saw the Master was John Sim, and he was glitching a lot, and he had all this like excess energy, and then he was thrust back into the time war from which he escaped originally.
Right.
He at one time was able to escape the time war with the chameleon circuit, and now he's trapped in it again. Very poetic of like, I couldn't have escaped this, and so now having not necessarily escaped again because Gallifrey has been freed, but been like fixed on Gallifrey. Gallifrey's free now. He's able to be free and travel the galaxy again. Kind of being like, okay, you know what? Maybe I've been going about all this the wrong way. And I really like that interpretation of the Master. And I think that is here in the first season, in this season. But so much of it is bogged down by what I think is just frankly a subpar Cyberman story that I just wish was at least written a little better,
Yeah. My again, what I'm able to gather that I like from the first season is those character interactions, those character moments, the good ones that are there. There's part of why I like the two-part finale.
Right.
That being said, yeah, it's not the strongest story. It's not like I'm sitting here being like, this is a good episode. But I feel like there's enough there to warrant the first season is not like a write-off.
Sure.
Yeah.
Which I think certain seasons can be.
Not naming any names yet, but
I'm not naming anyone.
There's some last little things I want to talk about the season, and then I think we should go to the next one. But
sure.
It is, as much as I dislike Deep Breath, it is kind of cool that it goes back to the Madame de Pompadour. I think that's kind of neat from the girl in the
Sure.
fireplace.
Yeah.
I also really like the line. I also really like seeing Capaldi try to figure out, try to kind of make sense of regeneration of like, where do these faces come from? Do I pick them? Is it subconscious? Are they picked? Is it actually random? And one of my favorite lines is, "Who found me this face?" Because like, why am I old? Like, what is that thought process? Like, why don't I just like that kind of like figuring it out kind of thing? Because his mind is all jumbled from the new cycle. And then in these last 2 episodes, Kate Stewart and Osgood show up, and I just like them.
Yeah. Sure. For sure.
I think there's a lot of similarities between this first season and Matt Smith's first season. I think there's a lot of, I don't want to say the same issues, but there's definitely a lot of that sort of getting a grasp of the character, getting a grasp of the stories that want to be told, and then falling short on the like actual follow through of what they're trying to set up.
I think the difference I feel in that is Matt Smith, I don't feel like the writing was getting in the way of his performance. And I feel like the writing is getting in the way of Capaldi here in the first season. Like, I just, I feel like he is, I feel like he is actively being steered in a direction that isn't the direction he wants to go. And you can kind of feel it, the performance like resisting and trying to kind of move it back away from where the writing is taking him. Because like, and I don't think it's, as we're going into this next season, I don't think it's hyperbolic to say that Capaldi from his first season to second is the most dramatic shift in personality and presence and character that we see of any Doctor do throughout their run. Like, he's just does a real big swing. I won't call it a full 180, but it's close.
Look, man, if you're running from, like professor kind of like, outfits, old man, to kind of like athleisure with like cool hoodies and
do you know
like
why
jackets.
Do you know why Capaldi pushed for the costume to go in this direction?
Oh no, I don't.
I love this. This is also the reason why he wanted the sonic device to be sunglasses. Capaldi wanted poor kids to be able to dress like the Doctor.
Oh
yeah.
Oh man, that hits.
Interestingly enough, this is my favorite look he has.
I love this look. Yeah,
the second season look is I think my favorite from his run.
But I have to say, first, as we get into the next season, Last Christmas is the Christmas special. I love Nick Frost as Santa Claus.
Santa?
I do not like this episode.
Oh, I love this episode. I'm so sorry you don't like it.
I think doesn't work for me. For
me, this makes up for a lot of the bad Danny Pink feel I had coming out of the first season.
Yeah.
While it doesn't, like, obviously Danny Pink is not a character in it, but I feel like it took the Doctor out of the equation of the Danny Pink relationship and just focused on what it meant to Clara. And that left a much better taste in my mouth about it. And I rather liked the story using that. And I like the gimmick of the dream within a dream, the dream, and all the times that they have to figure it out. It didn't bother me, and I found it quite fun and a fun way to include Santa and make him their savior. I rather enjoy Last Christmas, I won't lie.
Sure. It's just, I don't know, something about, I like the ending, but something about a lot of the rest of it just, I don't know, it just doesn't work for me. I've watched it a few times, but it just can't.
Look, man, you're in a dream within a dream within a dream, and the only way out is to believe in Santa. I don't know if it's so hard to get.
I don't know why it's like it's hokey, it's stupid, it's exactly the kind of Doctor Who, it's the kind of story that Doctor Who should tell, but it just doesn't work for me for some reason.
That's totally fair.
It is kind of wild.
Yeah, I really enjoy it, but I totally respect that. Like, it doesn't work for you. My biggest highlight of it is that, again, like, there's just a better taste in my mouth about Danny Pink's handling in the show because of it.
It's not that I didn't care for it. It just doesn't really like register for me as far as like Christmas specials go.
I remember it more fondly than I remember things like The Widow, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
That's fair.
You don't even remember which one that is, do you, Xander?
No, I do. And I actually think because I was taking a moment. I think I like that one more.
You know what I like about The Widow, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? And you know what? Actually, weirdly enough, The Widow, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and Last Christmas share a similar plot. Share a similar ending, specifically with the doctor coming back to their companion that they abandoned. Oh, by the way, we didn't talk about it, like, but the doctor thinking that the master was telling the truth about where Gallifrey was, and then it not being there, heartbreaking.
Right.
But The Widow, the Witch, and the Wardrobe has I really like that ending scene where it's Amy and Rory are like, "Oh, you're not dead," and they kind of have like the moment of like, "Oh, of course you're coming to Christmas dinner." Blah blah blah. Blah. It's kind of a really sweet moment that I quite like. Anyway, I have another controversial opinion.
Oh, okay.
I love this season. I was getting tired of Clara by this point, which has nothing to do with the content of this season. For whatever reason, I was pretty burnt from her from the last season. And so I kind of was taking that into this season. That said, I think this season does not start the strongest, but I think it constantly kind of progresses in a more positive direction and ends on some of the strongest episodes here. I like The Magician's Apprentice and The Witch's Familiar fine enough, but upon a rewatch, I think they're fun, but there's not really a lot there that I particularly enjoy. And it's not because of the snake, although that's a big factor.
I like it. I think it's just slightly lacking in execution.
Yeah.
But overall I enjoy it.
It has one of my favorite lines. Real quickly, it has one of my favorite lines, which is when the Daleks are all panicking that Davros has escaped, and they're just like, Davros, and they're all panicking, and then the door opens and it's the doctor in here, and he's just like, admit it, we've all had this exact same nightmare. It's just like, that's pretty funny.
Sure. Capaldi comes out swinging in the fun department for sure.
He does.
Yeah,
he does. That again, like you were saying, the shift in character for the Doctor is insane. Yeah. You know, I have my issues with like The Magician's Apprentice and The Witch's Familiar as far as like Davros again, and you know their whole thing. I really honestly believe that the first half of The Magician's Apprentice is one of my favorite introductions to a season.
Sure. I think it's one of the best cold opens in Doctor Who, honestly. Like if you're in the lore and everything, fair. And you get the boy out there with the hands and he's calling for help, and the Doctor's like, what's your name? And he's like, Davros, and then the Doctor's just like frozen and he's like, hello, are you going to help me? Like I'm like, oh shit. Talk about hooking you.
There's also another incredible line in this episode that I'm going to say a lot of really positive things, because I also think that, as much as I don't really think this episode is really that good, I think it's also it's probably really funny because like Davros has this moment where he's just like, you should be proud, Doctor. It took us a long time procuring it. We scoured the entire planet to find the only chair on Skaro. I just think that's really freaking funny.
I think it shows that Moffat knew, but after the reaction to the first season with Capaldi, that a tonal shift was needed, and got on board redirecting the energy of not just Capaldi but the show itself.
I mean, like you do a lot of like just going straight for that when you have the Doctor kind of like come in playing an electric guitar in a tank.
Yep. It's
just, you know, you're really like, oh, okay, we're just going for it. All right. But here's the part. I think it's the first time like in dialogue that I feel that Capaldi gets to have the intonation and express himself in the way that he wants to.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there was a lot of holding back in the first season. And this is the first time that I feel like a lot of that playfulness that he has, along with the like wisdom and like the old guy like attitude, where he's like, I brought the word dude through 400 years too early, dude. It's just like there's something about like seeing an old man just be like dude that just yeah, I think really strikes a chord as far as like be being like there's this charisma, there's this kind of like, you know, this sense that you see, you're like, oh, okay, I like this. It's different, but like I like it, so it's fine.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, the stuff with Davros, I like Davros, by the way. I like Davros quite a lot as a character. I hope we see more of him in the future. But I kind of like the idea that he does want the doctor. He does want the doctor's help. Like he there's an interesting idea here. Also, we see Karn again. The Sisters of Karn, or is it Khan? Is it Karn or Khan? And we saw them in the Night of the Doctor special where Paul McGann regenerates into the War Doctor.
Yeah.
We see them in this episode too, which is kind of cool. Yeah, it's an interesting concept, and it kind of, but I think honestly, I think what hurts the episode the most is that it retreads a lot of the Fourth Doctor Genesis of the Daleks episode, which is the kind of like, which is the Doctor Who answer to what would you do if you could go back in time and kill Hitler as a baby? Would you do it? Like, would you kill a baby? And it's like the Doctor in that, Tom Baker is the Fourth Doctor, has the opportunity to destroy the Daleks before they become the Daleks, and he doesn't do it. And we kind of like have Peter Capaldi kind of doing that again. Like, he does get the opportunity to kill to like, what is, like, he's kind of wrestling, like, should I let Davros die? Should I not? Like, where are we? And like, so I think that kind of hurts the episode a lot, is that you're kind of seeing them retread some ground that Classic Who has already done.
I hear you. I have some pushback on that. The majority of people watching modern Doctor Who have not watched that.
Sure.
So
definitely.
it's not as relevant. But the other thing is, I think there's a difference between the Doctor debating like stopping an entire race the way that he would have ingested the Daleks, and like, not that like obviously like Davros, creator of the Daleks. So yes, in a sense, stopping that. But
yeah,
I think there's something more personal here than what that earlier concept is. I don't disagree that they're like retreading the ground. There's a lot of classic Doctor Who, and I think sometimes things need to get retread for the modern era, because there are people that are just never going to watch that stuff.
Sure. I'm mostly just talking about it from like my perspective. Like,
yeah.
You know, because like you're right. There's not a lot of people have seen Genesis of the Daleks, especially people who are watching Doctor Who at this point. But like for me, my issue is that like I've already kind of seen this done already, and you're not really doing it that much new or interesting with it. You just kind of added a snake creature to it, and like, I'm already very much against you because of that. So you're already kind of doing an uphill battle here.
Sure.
I hate that thing. I hate that thing so much, and like mostly it's because of my snake phobia. But like, whatever it's called, but like, that thing sucks. So glad we don't see it again.
I welcome if you guys really have anything you want to say about Under the Lake or Before the Flood, but I don't really have anything to say about them.
They're okay. I like them enough. I think they're fun.
I do. Oh, go ahead, Xander, please.
No, I'm just kind of like agreeing on that front. There's nothing in those episodes to me that, like, in comparison to the rest of the season, make me go like, yeah, I want to talk about this.
I want to talk about like every other episode on the season, though.
Yeah.
So looking at The Girl Who Lived and the Woman Who Died, this is where Maisie Williams comes in, playing me. I think the character is cool. I think Maisie Williams is perhaps miscast. I think she's quite talented. I like her a lot. I especially like her in Game of Thrones, which she's most known for. I think as we get further along with the character, she just can't deliver what I think the writing is asking for to convince me of who this character is supposed to be. I just see kind of see Macy Williams being smarmy. And like I don't think the character is inherently a bad idea. I don't even necessarily think the character is necessarily written bad. I just think she's miscast. I think she's some stunt casting that didn't work.
I think I might agree with you on that one. I don't have too strong of feelings. This episode has one of my favorite moments, though, and it's a moment that I will acknowledge is too soon. Is too late because we've talked about before how the last season would have benefited from having this moment. But it is the moment where the Doctor remembers where he saw his face before, and it's the ties it back to the Pompeii episode.
Genius.
It was season 4, which is incredible. Like I never thought they'd do it, and he's just kind of like, wait, I have seen this episode before. It was in Pompeii. I haven't seen this face before. It was in Pompeii. Why would I pick this face? And like kind of a reminder of like, I don't have to save everyone. I just need to save one person.
Yeah.
Because I saved one person from Pompeii.
I agree. Like that moment in particular is very powerful. It hits. I love it. The concept of Mi's character is stretched across this season, and it's kind of it's not more egregious than River Song, but it reminds me of River Song, where like you've introduced yet another character who can be anywhere across the Doctor's timeline forever. And we've cemented that like, yeah, but they only look like Macy Williams, which means that like, because Macy Williams will never come back, we're never going to see this character again. And we can't because it's established that she looks the same at the end of time. Which means she doesn't age at all. And I feel like the use of the character is just a little short-sighted in terms of the concept they were chasing. And then again, like I can't stress enough that like I thought it was going to be really cool to have Macy Williams in Doctor Who because she's so good over on as Arya.
Yeah.
And like I was pretty underwhelmed when it came to this. I just don't think she works.
I don't disagree with that. I like the concept of the character very much in The Woman Who Lived.
Sure.
Like when it's introduced to like all of her journals and kind of like as this bandit and like the Doctor like revisits her, and it's revealed that the Doctor has kind of like been seeing her throughout time, like kind of keeping track on her throughout time whenever she drops off Clara. Continuing on another Stephen Moffat trope, by the way, we didn't talk about of the Doctor dropping off his companions and going off and doing his own thing and then coming back.
Yeah.
Which I like. I'll admit that I think that's a fun shtick is Moffat trying to build a companion who is trying to have balance.
Yeah.
And like ultimately Clara fails because pretty much once she loses Danny, Clara isn't really that interested in normal life anymore. And that slowly becomes clear to her.
Yeah.
And she becomes more like, I want to be like you.
Right. Yes. It's weird because I'm kind of of two minds about it. I agree. I don't think that she and I don't know if it's no, I think it never mind. I convinced myself half with you talking. I just don't think she has at that time the ability or the gravitas as an actor to,
which is crazy because she's like
believable, which is crazy because she's really good.
She's like multiple seasons deep into her Game of Thrones performance at this point.
Yes. I just think it was probably a really big departure of the character she had been playing.
Yeah.
That it can be difficult and it can take time to separate yourself from that character. And I think it's inevitable that there was going to be some bleed through because she'd been doing that for multiple seasons.
If I may, like, I don't, I'm jumping ahead to the finale just for this point about me.
Right. Okay.
When we get to the end of time with her, I don't believe there's any growth between when we see her with the Raven stuff to now. Like, it doesn't feel like the character's changed. And like, it's supposed to be so many years, and like, I don't feel any of it. I don't feel any of it in the performance. And to like compare her to one of her contemporaries, I feel like if Millie Bobby Brown had been doing it, I would feel those years. This is what I mean. Is that I'm just like, I just don't think she was well cast to portray that growth.
Yes, no, and I agree. I do, however, enjoy that they went for somebody that looked young and that was like small.
Yes, I think that's important.
Yeah. Well, they're trying to kind of recreate what Matt Smith was doing, right? Like Matt Smith had this kind of like old man weariness in a young man's body. And that's kind of what they're trying to do with Macy Williams, with me. Like she, like by the time we get to the end of time, like she should be kind of like, we should be seeing it with her in her face, even though she's not showing her age. That kind of like old person, like we kind of get it when she's like, I had children, like they died during the bubonic plague, and blah, blah, blah. Like we get that, we kind of get it there, but like it's trying to recreate what, frankly, I think Matt Smith did well, in not such a well done way, if that makes sense.
And and this is the thing, like I know Brandon, you haven't watched Game of Thrones, like she should have been a slam dunk for this. Like casting wise, when you hear about it and the character described in just even as a broad sense, as you said just now, she should have been a slam dunk. And it's wild that like it didn't work. It just didn't. For whatever reason, she doesn't work as the
Brandon,
character.
you should watch Game of Thrones.
I'll pass.
It's really good. Granted, the last season didn't do much for it, but it's good.
Look, honestly, if I had less things to watch, it would probably be higher on my thing. But I got a lot of shit I'd rather watch. Shit that I know isn't going to disappoint me. By the end of the show.
That's fair. That's fair. You know, it actually, I've come a long way from being like, screw the show and everything it stands for, to being like, no, it's good.
It is. It's legitimately good for 6 seasons.
Yeah.
And then it gets rocky in one and downhill in the other. Let's move on from that point. And
thank you.
Yeah,
the Zygon invasion and everything that comes after, I love.
I adore the Zygon 2-parter.
Yeah, I do
Zygon
too.
2-parters.
Solid. My only point in what I said is that like I there's not a bad episode in this batch, in my opinion. After this point.
No, there isn't.
I love all of them, and yes, absolutely, this 2-parter. Brandon and I don't remember if you bothered with it, Xander, but like Brandon and I passionately feel, because we both revisited the Zygon 2-parter this year, that like in 2 episodes they showed exactly what Secret Invasion, the MCU show, should have been and failed to do. They did it in 2 episodes.
I haven't seen Secret Invasion, but having seen the Zygon invasion, like it makes sense. This is, it's so good.
I need the floor. I need the floor.
You have the floor.
The thing about the Zygon invasion and the Zygon inversion that I love so much is that it starts with Osgood, and I love it so much because it takes just killing Osgood at the end of the last season as just kind of like, oh no, we killed that character. Oh wait, there were 2 of them, and then being like, what does that do to somebody? Because like at this point, there are 2 Osgoods. What's that going to do to somebody? What's that going to do to the other one? And then not knowing which one was the real one, and never finding out which one was the real one. And then like the fact that like holy shit, oh my god, oh okay, hold on, but the Secret Invasion thing is apt because it's not all Zygons on Earth. It's just a young sect of Zygons who are like, actually, we're done with this. We want war. Just like the Skrulls in Secret Invasion. Just like that. And like, how? Like, and I'm talking like not only do I like this episode more than these 2 episodes more than Secret Invasion just in general. These 2 episodes are my favorite episodes of the season. of this season, they are my favorite episodes because I think they're well plotted. By the end of the first one, when Clara is a Zygon and she's just like, oh, they're just using these to copy people, which doesn't make any sense. And because she's trying to kill all the pods with all the people they've cloned, they've turned into, and the unit lady's like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. These should be Zygons. Why do they look human? And then like the reveal that Clara is actually a Zygon, which honestly we probably knew at that point, but like that's not the point. The point isn't the reveal. And then freaking like I already talked about the 50th anniversary in the last episode, but the 50th anniversary works for me on like half a level, which is that I really like the Zygon plot line of the 50th anniversary and not so much the Time War Doctor stuff. The Zygon stuff is really interesting to me. And the fact that not only did we get a follow-up to that, which is really great, but it's in freaking credible. I'm rambling a lot, but like
no.
I really like these two episodes, you guys.
It definitely also has what I'm pretty sure is the best, if not like a very close run for the best Doctor monologue.
Oh my god. Capaldi at the end when they're in the Black Archive and it's Kate and Clara. Kate, human. Oh my god! And the cliffhanger with the Zygon's about to kill Kate, and it's just revealed that Kate just shot her. Holy shit! Like incredible. And then Clara and like what something that I think is really interesting about Kate Stewart is that she has become militaristic and less science forward than when she was introduced. Almost like the very foundation of UNIT has infected her in the way that she was hoping to infect UNIT. And so she's like very willing to like go to war over this, and like and the Doctor having this thing, and it's such an incredible monologue. He's taking all that pain, knowing that he's fixed that he saved Gallifrey, but taking the pain of what he did during the Time War and just like spewing that out there to try to get someone to understand that like going to war doesn't solve anything. What you're doing is only going to and at the end of the day, we're just going to it's what Capaldi has always talked about. What Capaldi talks about a lot. At the end of the day, at the end of a war, at the end of a life, all you've got left is an empty battlefield. Don't you want more? Don't you want to stop that from happening? Don't you want something else other than an empty battlefield of dead people?
Yeah.
The thing that this the thing that this whole scene does for me is that you hear the Doctor talk a lot about war and a lot about peace and a lot about like weapons and battles and fights, and he has like some really good lines throughout kind of just New Who referring to that. But I think this really feels like you see the scene, and if you go back after watching the scene, you understand the ethos that he is trying to portray. It just describes it so succinctly. It's so powerful, and it's not this like it's not trying to be this like, oh, we can all just get along, kumbaya, war has no purpose kind of talk. It's being just like, hey, we're at the point after the war when there's a winner and a loser and you sit down and you talk. We can skip that right now and just do that.
Yeah.
And the fact that like they have the option to like either one start the war, and it's like really symbolic. It's like big red button, really kind of like theatrical. I think that's what I like about it. It really feels like a stage piece with how they're set and where the Doctor is between them facing the audience. It's very, it's got a very like stage feel to it, which I think works to its advantage. it's really, really well done, and it never feels hokey. It never feels preachy. It doesn't, fall into any of those like pitfalls. It's just so, the build up to it is so good. The portrayal, the emotion, like Capaldi sells this on a level that is just like insane.
I agree with everything that my co-hosts have said. I don't think I'm exaggerating to say that these 2 episodes and the rest of this season, we could do an entire special, like 3 hours just on those, because they're some of the strongest stuff in Capaldi's run. I echo everything you guys are saying. I think these episodes are very, very good. I think a lot of credit to Peter Harness for coming in on his own, writing the first episode of this 2-parter, and then working with Stephen Moffat on the second. And it makes such a impact, and it's very strong. Its ending is really good. I don't think there's anything more profound about it than the decision that the Doctor makes at the end, which is that he's wiped their memories before. This has happened before, but he only wipes Kate's this time and says, you don't need this anymore. And she becomes the other Osgood. And like, it's really well structured stuff. It's really well written stuff. It's compelling. The mystery, the tension of the Doctor trying to prevent the catastrophe all the way up to that finale is really, really excellent. Can't sing its praises enough. It's just some of the best stuff in Doctor Who. It just is some of the best stuff in Doctor Who. They're not my favorite episodes of the season. They're my number 2 and number 3. My number 1 comes later.
I want to. We got to talk about the 3-parter finale, but you said Sleep No More. You've included Sleep No More, which is the next episode after this one, and you're kind of like, kind of banger after banger after banger. That's an episode I don't really think too much about. What makes you like that one a lot?
Yeah, amongst this collection of episodes, it's not necessarily like a hit out of the park the way that I think a lot of the rest of them in this batch are. Yeah. But I also think it's a solid episode in the mix. I love I really like Doctor Who stories where they're kind of they come upon astronauts who have been or explorers out in space who have been mistreated by some other organization and how they get involved. But for me, it's a cheap shot, but like the gimmick of the recordings and how the Doctor comes in the found footage style that we're doing in this episode. And they're like, oh, who are you? How are you here? And that kind of thing. And like the lack of trust and issues that they're having throughout, because they're like, they were just here and they shouldn't have been here, and sorting that. It makes it a fun episode for me. It's less that it's like at the highs of the rest, but I also don't feel like it's a huge dip. It's just kind of like this was all right.
There's one thing I do want to talk about in this episode, which is kind of something that Moffat started to do with the psychic paper, which is that the psychic paper doesn't listen to the Doctor anymore. Specifically, like Capaldi, like whenever he like brings up the psychic paper, he's always just like, oh, health and safety. I was like, this says waste management. Does it? Come on. The psychic paper has always been something that he could like, oh, here's my credentials, here's blah 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 blah, and like for whatever reason during Capaldi, it just 100% stopped listening to him. And I thought that I always kind of found that really funny.
Well, some of it also is like a lot of the previous Doctors would just, not all the time, but a lot of them would just hold it up and let the person say what they saw, and they'd be like, yes, exactly. And Capaldi definitely tries to almost always steer the ship of the psychic paper, and I like that he's like trying to predict, because the psychic paper is responding to what they would see, like what makes sense to them, right? And he's trying to predict it, and he's constantly screwing it up.
It's just, I always just really like that.
Yeah, I like that.
But we should definitely talk about the 3-part finale: Face the Raven, Heaven Sent, and Hellbent.
Man, if it isn't Clara facing the consequences of her own actions. So like we'll talk about Clara. Let's just Clara in broad. Clara really works for me. I love Jenna Coleman. I think she's a great companion. We've already talked about that. Like Donna's probably the best companion, but for me, Clara's kind of my favorite. And whether it was intended or not, her arc, I think, is really good. As this person who's regarded as unique by design of the universe and pulled into the Doctor's life and then stretched across his own timeline, it's no wonder that she becomes a companion who's like, I want to be the Doctor. I want to be like the Doctor. I want to make the decisions the Doctor makes. I want to behave the way they make. To look at that as something to emulate. And we hadn't had a companion up to this point who wanted to literally emulate the Doctor. And I think we were due. And I think this works really successfully in the pairing with Capaldi. Because there's a getting away from the Matt Smith era with Clara, there's a more guiding hand that Capaldi is encouraging her to go in this direction.
Mm-hmm.
He's like wanting to make his own Watson out of her. And that's also the consequences of his decisions. Like, I took this too far. I was totally fine to help keep you, to take you on your path and keep alienating you from regular life. And I should have recognized it was a problem sooner. Mm-hmm. And I won't say that's executed brilliantly throughout, and I won't say that was Moffat's intention when he started the arc with Clara, but as an ending point, I think it's rather brilliant.
I think there's something to be said. Again, I think objectively, like, Donna probably is the best companion. I think Clara is the Doctor's most important companion. As far as her effect narratively, her effect on his life, and really showing what this kind of like unhinged, unbridled sort of like care or like love they have for each other that isn't romantic, but is like, I want you to understand me. You want to understand me. You want to be me. I want you to be like me. And just kind of like they care for each other and move each other in a way that becomes really toxic.
Yes.
Their relationship is not a healthy one because the companion has always kind of like pulled the Doctor back and reminded him of like humanity and like, not being this eternal sage. And the Doctor's always pulled out the best in the companions into like who they can become, what they can do, their aspirations, but instead they're pulling the worst out of each other.
Yes. You know what you've pulled me into as a comparison for this? Before Supernatural went up its own ass. It's Dean and Sam. It's no, 100%. It's Dean and Sam. I will do literally anything. I have no lines to make sure that you stay alive.
Yes.
And I will do anything. I will accept any other fate for anybody as long as you live. And the Doctor and Clara reach that same point where they lose sight of like too far. In order to keep each other.
I mean, look, Clara makes just a dumbass decision taking this like death warrant, basically.
Well, she trusts that the Doctor will save her.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's this like unreasonable expectation that she's like, I can't die. The Doctor's obviously gonna save me. And then the Doctor literally moves heaven and earth to save her.
Yeah. Heaven and Gallifrey, anyway.
Yeah. I don't think Clara ranks as a favorite companion for me, and I don't think her arc is well executed, but I do actually find it fascinating. I really like the idea of a companion wanting to be the Doctor and pulling out their worst instincts in themselves, as you guys are saying. It works. I like the ideas presented, and I actually don't think the execution is that bad. Like, I don't want me to say that it's a bad execution. It just doesn't. The execution doesn't quite reach where I would like it to be. Is probably more accurate to say.
I'll say that I think I don't believe, even in the previous season with Capaldi, that this is where Moffat knew he was going.
Yeah.
No.
And I think if he had known that and done that throughout Clara's whole run, this thing would sing really wonderfully. I think he kind of saw a direction this season to go and pushed for it. And it works a lot in this season. And I wish it was something that felt like it was more baked into her entire run. It's there, don't get me wrong. It's there in pieces and in moments. Like, it's not pulled out of nothing. But I think Moffat like drove in a direction that he had not necessarily been driving in before. And I think that would have made the whole thing feel execution-wise a lot stronger if this had been intended from the get.
Yeah.
I really want to talk about Heaven Sent and Hellbent.
Yes.
Because to me, those are my favorite episodes from Capaldi's run.
Heaven Sent's really high up there for me. In Doctor Who, not as much Hellbent, but Heaven Sent for sure.
I have an argument for Hellbent, but
that episode is like, you can come into it almost with no knowledge. Like, you get enough of the importance of Clara that it can just kind of like pop off and hit you, and it's just a really, really powerful emotional story that and it's so good to watch because it's mostly Capaldi by himself.
Yes.
And you really get to see how he can hold like you for a whole episode on his own.
Yes. And the best part is that it's the same thing. It's the same like 10-minute episode over and over again. But it's done so well.
Yeah.
I love the whole like, what's happening, what's going on, figuring things out, figuring out that he figured it out the first time and then was like, this is how I keep this going.
Right.
And
so real quickly, Xander, one of the things that I really like about Heaven Sent is that we don't start with him just appearing there, and that's his first go through. We start with like thousands of him have already died when we jump into the episode.
Yeah.
I think that's incredible.
It's really well done. I think this is also the perfect way, which definitely they haven't done right before, and was one of my like big problems with Matt Smith. But this was the perfect way to be like, oh, he's been trapped for like billions of years.
Right. Because like for him, it's only a day.
For him, it's only a day. And I'm like, that's like to me the best way to do this like long sort of like time to really give the sort of like feeling that this was a big deal. And not be like, yeah, the Doctor's not canonically like a couple billion years old. It just like it works so much better for me.
But technically he isn't, right? Because it's just a new body, right?
Exactly.
Recreated, and even then, it's inside of the thing, which means like, is it even that real to begin with?
Right.
Not to say that the time that he's feeling, but he's not, because he's only experiencing really a day.
Yeah,
in his memory.
As far as like dropping a line about X amount of time past he was trapped in there. I'm like, this was really well done, because to him it's really only a day. But the whole imagery and the story of the bird like pecking away at the mountain, it just like, it's so powerful, it's so good, and at the same time it's like so just like heart-wrenching, because at this point he believes Clara has died, correct? So his whole thing's like, oh, I gotta get out of here. I'm going to do this as long as it takes and just not give up.
He thinks the TARDIS is behind this wall. So if I remember correctly, he's like, if I could just punch through this wall. And like by that point, by the time he starts punching, he knows he knows the game. He's like, okay, I need to start punching. And one of my favorite moments of the episode is because we see, I think, 3 loops where he says the exact same part of the story and then gets burnt and then dies. And then like the fourth or fifth, he gets a little bit long. It gets a little bit longer, just a bit. He says one extra word or one extra line. And you're like, oh shit, he's doing it. And like that's when it starts. That's when you start seeing him like moving into the wall, and you're like, oh shit, yeah, baby.
This is the most anime Doctor Who has ever been.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The Doctor punching this wall, motivational shit as it's like combining on top of each other, collapsing into this long stream into a small montage of moments so that you can get the full impact of it. It's wonderful. It's wonderfully powerful. I think the episode's brilliant. I have no qualms.
No. Yeah, it just is. There's very little, if anything, to be upset about in the episode. The only thing I can see as an argument is that you're not into that sort of like time loop, Groundhog Day feeling, thing. And if you're not, that's fine. But it's not the episode's fault that you suck.
Hellbent, though, I like Hellbent. Oh, go ahead.
Real quick, I did want to go back just to Face the Raven real quick. It is one of my favorite chilling moments with Capaldi when he knows he's about to be sent somewhere. Clara has just died. And I think her death is very lovely. Her whole, let me do this by myself. Let me stand by myself for this. Let me be brave. I think is really lovely. His chilling moment is I don't want to see you again. You'll find the universe can be a very small place when I'm angry with you. Chilling Capaldi. He's so pissed.
Hellbent is really interesting because we go back to Gallifrey, which I really like. I'm glad we're back in Gallifrey. The Doctor has found Gallifrey. Gallifrey's not hiding in a pocket dimension. They're hiding in a pocket of time towards, not at the end of time, but towards the end of time. Just kind of like existing as far outside of the universe as they can at this moment because they're too scared to kind of go back into the universe proper. And most of that fear is coming from Rassilon, who has a newfound fear of the hybrid, this kind of mythical hybrid within Gallifrey's structure. This is unfair to say, and I will 1000% acknowledge that. It is a bummer that they could not get Timothy Dalton back as Rassilon.
No, I think that's fair to say. Like, you kind of
I would have loved to see Timothy Dalton back as Rassilon because I think he's great in the end of time. And look, the actor, you know what? He's a Time Lord. He regenerated. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
I just kind of wish we got one more like Timothy Dalton as Rassilon. And the fact that the Doctor is able to scare Rassilon, the president of the Time Lords, the Time Lord who set Time Lord society billions of years ago and then was resurrected so that they can have a ruthless president during the Time War. The fact that the Doctor was able to scare him off of Gallifrey is insane. And then just be like, I'm president now.
Well, not even just that. I think it's one of the strong moments of it where everyone else acknowledges the Doctor as a person who saved Gallifrey.
Yes.
Like they recognize the importance of him pulling them out of the Time War.
Yeah.
And are unwilling to listen to Rassilon when Rassilon says to kill the Doctor. And I think that's a really powerful follow-up to what the Doctor did, is that, just Gallifrey as a group collectively recognizes that the Doctor did more for them than Rassilon ever has.
Yeah. Because Rassilon's whole plan during the Time War, because this is kind of like coming off of like what we know a lot about the final days of the Time War at this point. We know that Rassilon was willing to wipe out the universe and ascend Time Lord society into its next form. And we know that the soldiers in the Time War were just kind of like praying that it was going to end soon. So like with that knowledge of like, because the general is there in this moment, and he's like, Rassilon at the end of the Time War, Rassilon hid and said, okay, we're just going to destroy the universe. Like the Doctor saved us. And there's this kind of respect that he has, which leads actually to one of my favorite lines of the episode, which is going back to like the Doctor and Clara kind of like taking out their worst instincts, which is the Doctor shoots the general, but the Doctor's like rationalizing it because he has this moment where he's just like, I shoot you, you regenerate. He even has the thing like regeneration, like asking like, which number are you on? Am I going to kill you or are you going to regenerate? And he's just like, I'll regenerate.
Yeah.
10.
Good luck, sir. And to you.
Yeah. And like they have that moment like, and like, but like the Doctor still killed a man, which goes against like his whole thing. But I really like how the general plays that scene because of his respect for the Doctor saving them during the Time War.
Right.
Yeah. So, hitting on a couple different points on Hellbent, I really, really like how the episode kind of opens with him like discovering it's Gallifrey, seeing that like finding the barn again, and like all the like other people on the planet that have been kind of like divided from timeless society.
Specifically something that Moffat does that I don't mind. I wasn't crazy about the fact that Moffat seems to imply that the Doctor is no longer a highborn Gallifreyan. He's more of he's not necessarily highborn. Although I think actually Chibnall inadvertently changed that with the Timeless Child. But I'll explain that when we get there. But when he also kind of like fixes the divide between like not every Gallifreyan is a Time Lord.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of them were just people.
Yeah.
who were just there. And like Gallifrey is a planet like any other, but the Time Lord society was so high. I mean, there's a reason why the Doctor ran in the first place. The Doctor did not agree with the Time Lords, and I do really like the kind of like idea that the Doctor has kind of, because of his actions during the Time War in the 50th, been like, all right, he's kind of become a champion of his own people.
Yeah.
In a way that he never really was. He was always kind of seen as an outcast, but now like specifically because like it's very important. Time Lords can regenerate. Gallifreyans cannot.
Yeah.
So a lot of people who died during the Time War, they only had one life.
That was it.
That was it. So like I think that's a really good moment.
Yeah. No. I love it because that whole scene with kind of this like, oh, this is like a Time Lord. This is like a highborn Gallifreyan that's just like chilling with us and just eating at the table. And you know, it really hits to him as a character. And then the whole very, very Western inspired like standoff with the army. And like the line in the sand and the whole thing, and not saying a word. And just being like, yeah, this is how this is going to play out. Really well done. Going back to the whole like Clara Doctor's toxic relationship. Him finding this like secret Gallifreyan technology to like pull Clara out of time.
Well, it's technology that was introduced in the original show.
Right, yeah. But I mean, like, just kind of like, as far as New Who goes, we haven't really seen Gallifreyan tech.
Yeah. And
it's one of those things where it's like, oh, right, Gallifrey is like a whole thing. Yeah, and him pulling her out and then like you said, shooting the general, and it's like, cool, even if it was excused, like this is completely contrary to like who he is, and really shows that whole like, I will do anything as long as you're alive mentality that we'd like been touching on. You know, I really, really like the vault underneath Gallifrey with all the trapped monsters.
Yeah, that was kind of cool.
That was pretty cool. I enjoyed that whole bit. You know, the episode, like you were mentioning earlier, the end of time, the like sitting here witnessing the end of the universe thing. Yeah, it doesn't land that well, but like writing wise, it does. Like the words that are said.
You mean for me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we pick up a TARDIS, which, by the way, I do appreciate how Moffat thinks a TARDIS without its chameleon circuit on looks, which is just a cylinder with a door on it.
Yeah.
I always kind of found that really funny. But we go to this kind of, because me is in the vault at the end of time.
Mm-hmm.
How the hell did she even get there? But I guess it's billions of years in the future, so
yeah,
you could have. Or maybe the Time Lords picked her up. I don't know. Yeah, I think there's some interesting stuff written, but like I think Macy Williams' performance just isn't really delivering, as Sparkz has already said.
Yeah, we've kind of touched on this already, so it's like you know, just one of those things.
I'll take it a step further and say that like the hybrid story also is the part of this that I don't really care for in these episodes.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you.
The whole hybrid thing is where like so much of this back half of the season is working for me, and every time the hybrid stuff comes up, I'm like, oh, there goes Stephen Moffat again. Got to make a name thing for what's going on this season. What we're focusing on. What's the problem?
Because the hybrid thing like bugs me because it's like it's always like, oh, maybe I'm the hybrid, or maybe this doll, or maybe I'm half Dalek, half Time Lord, or maybe I'm half human, half Time Lord, or maybe I'm the hybrid, maybe this is the hybrid, this hybrid. I'm like, I don't like that. I don't care.
This one bothers me mostly because like, and it's not the rest of the show's fault for this, but like, it's this thing where it's like, for the first time ever, the Doctor mentions there's this prophecy about a hybrid who will stand over the ruins of Gallifrey, and that's what they're afraid of right now. And I'm like, cool, we've literally never heard of this before. And it just coincidentally matters now. Yeah. Now, whatever. Where was this prophecy during the Time War? Did anybody give a shit? Like, it feels like a half-baked idea to just like work in some mystery and language here that just doesn't. I don't think is necessary.
There's a lot about the hybrid I don't like, mostly because it's not really resolved. It's left kind of open-ended.
I'll say just because like I don't like the concept to begin with. I prefer it being unanswered. I don't want them to clarify and say it was the Doctor and Clara, or it was me, or whatever.
Right? Yeah. And it's fine. I like the interpretation that it's the Doctor and Clara, just because it shows how disastrous their relationship becomes.
Right. But it also isn't real, right? Because no hybrid does stand over the ruins of Gallifrey.
Yeah, exactly. So it's this whole thing. So it's like, you know what? It's fine.
Brandon knows exactly what I'm alluding to.
I'm gonna skip over this. But God.
God damn it! Oh, I'm mad.
The ending of this episode and everything. You know, I think Hellbent works really well with the Doctor explaining this story to Clara.
Yes, I think so too.
You know, Clara really like, you see the conflict between her knowing he won't remember and her really hoping he does.
This is something that I really like. I really like across the episode, because you start the episode because of how you started with the diner thing. You think the Doctor's the one that remembers.
Yeah,
and somehow he has done something that means that Clara does not.
Yeah.
And I think the twist reveal at the end that he is the one who does not remember her is really well executed.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I really like that.
Yeah, I understand. There's a little conflict here because on one hand, I'm like, okay, so Clara basically does get to be the Doctor for a while,
right?
You know, and there's the interpretation that this kind of like subverts everything they were talking about in the story, and like their relationship and how like bad it was becoming.
Well,
on the other hand, I really enjoy that it's like, cool, she can be this without the Doctor.
I think oh, go ahead, Brandon, please.
Well, I was going to say, like, Clara's ending, and I've already mentioned this with like Amy's ending, right? Like, I think Clara's ending is Moffat kind of giving the companion a reward this time, like something that's like, because she essentially, well, yeah, she gets her comeuppance and dies, and she does die. She for the rest of the time, she has to go back to that moment and die, or else all of time will collapse in on itself. Because the Doctor tries everything to fix it. But she gets to be the Doctor. She gets to travel the universe in a TARDIS with a stuck chameleon circuit with the companion for as long as she wants.
Can I mention how much I don't like the decision of the stuck chameleon circuit being a 1950s diner?
You know what I don't particularly like about it is that the interior is a 1950s diner. I don't get that. How the console room is in the back.
It's in the back.
That didn't make a lot of sense to me. But ultimately, like, I thought, I like the scene. I like the shot of the two TARDISes crossing.
Right, like,
I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sparkz, all I'm getting is
Ooh, ooh. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back-ish.
Back-ish or back?
Back, but we don't know for how long.
Okay. I'll try and say this quickly then. I really like the Doctor remembering Clara as her theme. Remembering her in music, which is the music that was used for Clara's theme in the show.
Right.
I think that's beautiful.
Him playing that song damn near broke me.
Yeah, it's real good. And the TARDIS with the art for her, the flowers on it. I thought that I love that. I love that stuff.
I'll bring this up now. Clara's theme is my favorite Murray Gold companion theme.
Oh, it's so good. It's not even like
really
comparatively
strong.
to the other companion themes, it's not even close.
Yeah,
it's very recognizable.
Yeah.
You know, it you could play different companion themes and I'd like kind of have to guess who's who, but like you know Clara's. Like you know who it is.
Yeah, she has an incredible
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so this is why I love the two-parter finale there. I think it does a lot to kind of be like different from other ones, from other kind of like leaving the companion things. It really does something new with it, and I'm all for that.
For sure.
God, we're getting so late, and I still need to talk about
the
song.
Yeah, we still haven't even talked about the last like season of Capaldi's run.
I'm glad we spent so long on season 9. But can we talk about the Husbands of River song now?
Yes, please. I love that.
This is my favorite River Song episode, and it's frankly the most I've ever liked this character.
Easily.
She works on a level here that Moffat desperately wished she did before.
Yeah.
It's wild to me that it took them this long, and like I wish that this was the template, that we got more River Song episodes after this. But again, like it kind of like fits in. He found a workaround to make it so that we saw River one last time after the Angels Take Manhattan, but it's impossible to do again because River has this. He again shoots himself in the foot. He has this thing where it's like, oh, I have a list of all these doctor faces. These are the only ones I've met. So you can't be the doctor. It's frustrating. It's frustrating that she never picks up on it. That because he's literally saying, "I'm the doctor," in multiple scenes of this.
Well, and I buy it because she's convinced he can't be, because to her knowledge, there should not be able to be another regeneration. That's her greatest knowledge of it. That's not possible. And I think like the comedy of that really works. And like, to your point, why does this River story work? It's because it's the first time I believe the Doctor actually loves River.
Yes. Capaldi is incredible in this episode with her. And I've rewatched this episode multiple times because it's hilarious. There are
funny.
Multiple scenes that I just will watch on YouTube because it's so damn funny. Capaldi walking into the TARDIS. My God, it's bigger on the inside, and like he's like flipping out. It's so good.
Yeah, it's possibly one of the best jokes in all of Doctor Who. Finally, it's my turn.
Yeah,
it's really good.
But my favorite line in this episode. Sorry, Xander, I'll let you go after this. Which is like when she's yelling about how the Doctor. It's impossible for the Doctor to be here because the Doctor doesn't love her. He never when you love a supernova, when you love a sunset, you don't expect the sunset to love you back. It's like loving the stars themselves. Like she puts out like, if he were, you really think the Doctor would be standing right here beside me? And like he's just like like at that point he's like really close to her, like, you should really shut up by now. And like she figures it out, and she's like, oh, you are so doing those roots. And he goes, what, the roots of a sunset? I'll have to check with the stars themselves. Just kills me every single time. It's so funny.
He gets to pull for the first time the "Hello, Sweetie" on her.
Yes.
It's really great. You also have two very good British comedians in this special, which is Greg Davies as the King and Matt Lucas as Nardole. And boy, do they inject a lot into this, because they're both very good and they're very funny.
I was just gonna say the same thing as Brandon. I was literally moving straight into that part. I was like, it's such a highlight in the episode.
But
that and its ending.
The coldest line ever in this episode is so good, because she's just like, how'd you know there'd be a meteor storm? It's like, because I'm an archaeologist in the future. I dug you up. And I'm just chill. I just got chills. Like it's chill inducing. I love the scene so much, and I really like how they're bickering of like all the husbands and wives they've had since they got married. Like all the kind of like random things the Doctor just kind of finds himself married to women every now and then. But like the ending of like finally being on Beryllium and having River like, no, like, is this it? Is this because of all those stories? And the Doctor's like, it's not, if I can help it. Like we're not doing this. And then he kind of like has this moment where it's just like, yeah, I guess it's time. I really like how he uses the TARDIS to be like, to like make the reservation, come back a few years later in the same spot, like constantly like using the TARDIS. This episode, it's so good. Like the Husbands of River song is a really good episode. It's the strongest River episode. I'm floored that Moffat pulled this one out after such a disappointing turn for this character a few seasons ago.
The whole bit with the Doctor like talking about the like the rock pillars and you know, the singing and everything, it sets such a mood. I really, really, really believe that he loves her.
Yeah.
And that just, I hadn't really seen it to that level before.
Yes.
You know, it's it's unfortunate, I think, that we didn't get to see more of River and him together.
Yeah.
Because
yeah, go ahead.
I feel they have more chemistry. I feel like they bounce off each other better. I could have really done with, River being sprinkled in instead of being like arc driven.
Me too.
And then be able to see her more often, or be able to see her longer, just less often.
Because River has this thing where she's talking to David Tennant when the first time we meet her, and she's like, when I meet you, the real you, my doctor. But it doesn't. It lines up if it never lined up for me very well that was only Matt Smith, and it helps that it becomes Capaldi also. But like, I really feel like it should have been a lot more doctors. Like, she should have met a lot more future versions of the Doctor, so that she could have so she could actually like, I know you hundreds of years in the future, where we've had countless adventures, and we see those adventures. It never sat right with me that it was only just one version of the Doctor that she had all her adventures with.
Sure, and I mean, like, well, not if you go to the audio adventures,
right? I mean, but those are like past versions of the Doctor.
Yeah.
And like, that's cool that she interacts with them, but like, I want to see future versions too.
And they just always forget. But we've talked to death last time about how the River Song stuff was just like kind of cut off in a way that it shouldn't have been, especially with like, you had the regeneration possibilities with her. And as an ending that leads into Silence in the Library, I think this is quite good.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And I think the important part, the part that makes all of it work for me, besides the fact that, like, for the first time ever, I believe the Doctor is actually loving her.
Yeah.
Is that we have that really great bit at the end where it's like, so we'll have this one night, and it's like, how long is it on Beryllium? 24 years. And he's with her for 24 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that cements, like, not only like for River's perspective, this is her Doctor now. Like, when we get to Silence in the Library for her,
right? Yeah.
He's the one who was there with her, because I appreciate that Moffat recognizes there was a problem and has River directly voice, as you guys brought up earlier. Of course he doesn't love me, as we have felt in watching the show. Of course not. How could he? And this is a Doctor who's willing to stand there and say, yes, I do. And stay there for 24 years loving her. And I think that's really lovely.
Yeah. I don't have a lot to say about the return of Dr. Mysterio. It's a fun episode, though. I liked it.
I like Justin Chatwin. I'm kind of like, yeah, neat on this.
Yeah. I like the end, though. Nardal's fun.
Nardal's always good. Love Matt Lucas. So happy that he's back for this whole next season.
I really like this season, you guys. This season's really good.
So good. It's such a shame.
I really like Bill Potts.
It's such a shame.
I really like Bill Potts too.
That we only get one season with Bill Potts and Nardal. I could have easily done another at least.
Yes. This is also one of my favorite ongoing jokes is introduced in this season, which is the Doctor desperately not wanting people to check his internet browser history.
Yes.
Which I constantly think is very funny. He's like, don't check my browser history. Which comes to a head in Twice Upon a Time, which I think is really funny. I don't want to go through this episode by episode, but I really like the introduction of Bill and the girl who like she ends up with at the end of the season. Yeah. I think that's all really solid and really good setup. I really like their relationship, Bill and the Doctors. And then setting up this like idea of like, why is the Doctor been there for 70 years?
Yeah. I love him as a professor.
Yeah,
actually teaching. I this was just really refreshing. Kind of an Indiana Jones-esque thing going on.
Yeah. Except he teaches whatever he feels like doing.
Yeah. Of him like in the classroom. it just felt really rewarding, I think, especially for a doctor who's already been like wanting to write on chalkboards inside his TARDIS anyway.
Yeah.
To be here with him as a professor, I think was such a really good choice.
Yes.
And I think it naturally forms a really good relationship between him and Bill, which I really love.
I agree. I think The Nice is a really fun episode. I like Knock Knock. How do you guys feel about Knock Knock?
I love Knock Knock.
Yeah.
I really like it. As you alluded to earlier with the forest episode, I think this is a much better the woods kind of thing.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
I was actually talking about, interestingly enough, I was actually talking about The Lie of the Land. I
know you were, but what it was making me think of also was this one about the woods themselves in the house, and I really quite like Knock Knock. I think Thin Ice, Knock Knock, both really, really excellent episodes personally.
Oxygen too. I like Oxygen a lot.
Oxygen is one of my favorites of this season. I love capitalism taken to its extreme. You have to pay for the oxygen you breathe in space while you're working for the company.
I'm going through this list. I like all these episodes, man.
They're really good episodes.
I want to talk about a little bit about Extremis, because that starts kind of a 3-episode arc in the middle of the season of the monks. And Extremis is really interesting because like people start to learn the truth, which is that they're a computer simulation. And like I genuinely started to believe, like, is Moffat about to say that the entirety of Doctor Who is set within a computer simulation? Is that what we're doing here? But the end of the episode is but Oxygen is where the Doctor loses his eyesight. And so like he's using the sonic glasses, sonic sunglasses. And so like I love the end of the episode when the monk's like, "What are you doing?" "I'm sending an email. I'm doing what everyone does when they're in trouble. I'm calling the doctor."
Yeah.
And it's like, oh shit. And
I think that's pretty good. I like the Monk trilogy.
Yeah.
Except I don't really like how it ends. I'm
kind of the same way.
Ultimately, I feel like the Monk storyline, like once we're on the path, I like Bill's connection to her mom and everything being a key part to it. Mm-hmm. But outside of that, I'm like, we get to Lie of the Land, and like considering the buildup of the 2 episodes, I'm just left kind of unimpressed by the monks. Like as Dr. Who villains, I don't really like what they do once they have control. I'm like, this is pretty lame. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. It goes back to like something that I don't like the Moffat does, which is that the human race forgets that it just happened. This kind of like reset to zero thing whenever there's this big like worldwide calamity that Moffat doesn't want to think about the like ramifications of. It's just like the human race will just forget. I like it, but the ending does sour because I like the pyramid at the end of the world with like the whole thing of like who speaks for the human race.
Yes.
And then Bill ultimately saying that we need, no matter what happens, we need the doctor and we need him with his eyesight back. And it's kind of like in the doctor's perspective, like dooms the human race at the in the moment.
Well, and like the whole process of that episode, the second episode where they're like figuring it out and they're putting it together and we're missing something. It's viral. Let's narrow it down. You've had the pieces in the episode that are leading up to figuring out what it is. And there they go. And like, it's just that the doctor can't get out. That's ultimately like, it's the smallest thing. And that's what leads to Bill making their decision. And like that episode, I really like. I just feel the third episode, outside of some of the character stuff between Bill and the doctor, really I find lacking because like once the monks have the world, I find them utterly unimpressive.
Yeah. I kind of
like they just turn into completely dull after that, where they're like, cool, you got the world, whatever. What are you doing with it? Nothing.
Yeah. Empress of Mars is fun. I like the Ice Warriors. Second time we've seen the Ice Warriors in New Who. Kind of fun.
Yeah, I really like that one.
The Eaters of Light is a fun one. I think that one has a really cool concept.
Yeah. I think they really went for something with that one that works most of the time.
I think we're going to spend most of our time talking about World Enough in Time and The Doctor Falls, which is the 2-part finale.
Yeah. One of the best modern Cyberman stories.
Yeah.
Yes. A wonderful
sure.
Cyberman story.
Coupled with the time dilation on the ship.
I love the time dilation so much.
So good. What a good episode. And it's so sad. The whole thing makes me so sad.
That's the thing. It's so heart-wrenching. And the whole like arc with Missy.
Yes. Missy trying to be good.
Yes. Through this season where he's like, I'm going to save you from execution. You don't just get off that easy.
When
I'm imprisoning you for 1,000 years, but like I still believe in you.
When Missy comes out of the TARDIS and she's like, I'm that rapscallion adventurer, Doctor Who. Why do you keep saying my name's Doctor Who? It's well, people always ask that anyway, so I'm just cutting to the end.
Also, it's his name.
What? It's not my name.
I just to comment on that, Michelle Gomez throughout the season, like one of the reasons this is a great season is also because she's peppered throughout and she's lovely.
And she's got, we've already talked about it her first season when she's introduced, but like her arc in this season is so good. And it's just the idea of like, it wasn't the Doctor forcing her to be good. It was genuinely her like, I want to try. I don't know if it's possible, but sure, let's try. Let's try and make me a good person. Why do you do it? And like ending with the button, which is at the end of the second episode. Just such an interesting place to take the Master. Arguably the most interesting place to ever take the Master ever in all of Doctor Who.
Yes, I agree.
And no shade to any of the classic Masters because they're all great. They're all wonderful. Wonderful actors played them all. But like, what do you do with a character who we've already established is the Doctor's childhood friend, is diametrically opposed to the Doctor in every way, the Moriarty to his Sherlock? What do we do with that character? Let's see if we can reform her.
Right. And also, when she's on the cusp of... sorry, Xander, go ahead.
No, it just Moriarty to Sherlock. And what a better development it has been than Moffat's other ventures with that relationship.
Holy shit. Yes. Unfortunately, Sherlock kind of petered out towards in the second season. Actually petered out really early, which thank goodness I didn't waste much time on that one. I like that first season of Sherlock is awesome. But he never saw Sherlock Sparkz.
Nope, not a season, not an episode, not a moment.
Anyway, it's what were you going to say about Missy?
Right when she's on the cusp of true reform, you throw in a past version of herself to throw her off. Which is also like nobody saw Double Master coming and bringing back John Sim, and everyone's like, hot damn, is this like the best thing Doctor Who's ever done? Like,
also with like the Cybermen thing, when the Cybermen are such an interesting thing because like I have been doing my own little Moffat plotline throughout this episode because like I'm really tired of like Moffat creating these like scary new creatures that kind of like, okay, we've seen the Silence, we've seen the Angels, we've seen the Whispermen, sure, whatever. But then to introduce like these people who these white socked people from the bottom of the ship, who cares? But to have the reveal be that they're the Mondasian Cybermen, the first version of the Cybermen the Doctor has ever fought, that it wasn't just some monster of the week that Stephen Moffat decided to be like, whatever, I'll just create something scary. That it was actually leading to a terrifying reveal of this perfected version of this Mondasian Cyberman. Holy shit. Just like insane.
Right.
And
Yeah.
poor Bill. Poor Bill.
Oh man, Bill
The way-
saddens me.
Bill.
The way in the second episode it's cutting between what she thinks she looks like and what she actually looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's some heartbreaking stuff, especially when Nardole first sees her.
I know.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really effective. It's really like tragic. It's beautiful in its tragedy. It's one of the toughest moments in Doctor Who is losing Bill.
They have like the companions have gone in many different ways, and so some of them die, but not like this.
No.
You don't see this. It's not really on screen in this kind of way where you're like, oh shit.
Because like it's so much more heart-wrenching because we've seen companions die. A lot of companions have died. The Doctor, there's been a lot of death in the Doctor's wake. But like this horrific conversion into a Cyberman and being seeing her live decades of a life on the bottom of the ship before being turned into Cyberman. Like watching the TV with who we learn is the John Sim Master, is the Saxon Master, of this like a second go by of the Doctor formulating this plan to save her. And how it cuts between the two time periods. God damn. This is some good shit. This is really, good
really strong.
Shit.
Really strong. And I love that the rest of this season, aside from like the small like plot building and episode stuff, really just feels like it isn't building to this huge overarching story.
Oh my god, you're so right. You're so right, because it's not.
It's not. It's just these wonderful like adventures, professor student going out, exploring, doing all the parts that we love about Doctor Who, and having that main plot at the end just being Missy's story.
Right. Well, like, yeah, that's the thing, is like arguably it's Moffat's maybe best season stretching arc thing. Like, what's the big thing? You start with the mystery of who's in the locked door that he's guarding. It's Missy. Why is Missy there? The Doctor wants to help them become good. Does Missy become good? Yes, but it ends in tragedy. Like, that's the thing, and that's the most powerful and emotional version of any of Moffat's shticks for a season arc thing you've ever had.
Yeah, and it doesn't get in the way of like all the other stuff. The season's just so well constructed.
You've already talked about Xander, the Zygon speech where he talked about war, but like my favorite speech that Capaldi does is the one where he's trying to get through to the Master. It doesn't matter which one. I mean, he wants Missy to see it.
Yeah, but one of them.
He's like, I don't do what I do because it's the right thing to do, or because I do what I do because it's kind. Because it's the right thing to do, and like he's just like trying to get through to them, and like the Saxon Master, he's set in his ways, and he's like, this is the face of a person who didn't listen to a word you just said, and then cut to the face of a person who absolutely did.
Right.
Yeah.
Just incredible writing. There's no music in the background of that either. It's just Capaldi acting the shit out of the script in front of two, frankly, very good versions of the Master, and that play off really well together. Like, we've seen Doctor stories. There's audio stuff has done Master and Master stories, but it's very rare to see the two Masters on one screen together. And to have this happen in this episode is so well constructed. I God damn, I really like this episode.
Yeah, I do too. I think like the tragedy ending for both Bill and Missy are both so well done, and the way they like the tragedy for the Doctor that he doesn't know that he got through to Missy, and he never will, is so sad. It's so sad.
There's Nardole stays behind to help these people. I also really like to have the Cybermen keep evolving, so we keep seeing the different versions of the Cybermen throughout the episode. I also really like how when the Doctor goes out to like stall the Cybermen to like destroy them all, he's doing it by saying like, I stopped you this time and this time and this time. And he's like listing every single time he stopped the Cybermen, and it's just like pointing a screwdriver at the ground, like exploding and shit. And I thought it was really good. All while, by the way, we find out in this episode he's holding back his regeneration.
Yeah.
He's absolutely about to regenerate, and he's not letting it happen.
And in such a different way than what's his name again? Tennant. And it like, I love that they're both holding back this generation, but it's like for completely different reasons.
Yeah. Missy's death is very good. The master, the Saxon master, deciding like, all right, well, I'll just kill my future self and I'll go off and regenerate into you and it'll be better. But like, there's a brilliant line that Moffat puts in this episode that's completely disregarded. But like, it says like, because like there's an implication like I might be the one after you. I honestly can't remember. Mm-hmm. So like implying that like Missy doesn't remember if she regenerated from the Saxon Master or if there were regenerations in between, which there absolutely should have been.
Well, there probably
anyway, we'll
talk about it. Still wild.
So I really like her end because she's, she does the kind thing. She stops the master, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I really like this. And then Bill gets her happy ending, thank goodness, because she deserves it. And I mean, not really she still dies, but like she's able to go off into the universe and travel with this girl that she's fallen in love with. Which I know I'm rushing through this because it's freaking late.
No, it is.
But which leads us to my favorite regeneration episode, which is Twice Upon a Time.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah, they're just what a powerful season. What a powerful finale.
Yeah.
Goodbye to Bill.
Goodbye to Bill.
Well,
when the Cyberman's like, I am Bill Potts, and you're just like,
no.
And then the zoom in on the tear.
Yeah.
Oh. Kills me.
As far as, I mean, like Twice Upon a Time, good, wonderful. I don't want to get super into it.
I do.
Oh man. Okay, let's get into it.
Brandon loves it.
I love it to death. Do you guys not? Do you guys not love it? I cannot talk about it. It's okay.
No, I really enjoy it. I
really do.
I would not deign to say I love it as much as you, but I do enjoy it.
I watch it all the time. I watch it all the time. I think it's so good. I quote this episode so freaking much. I've memorized a lot of this episode. I love David Bradley as the first Doctor. I'm so happy he was able to like portray the Doctor proper, coming in after an Adventure in Space and Time, where he played William Hartnell. And so him kind of coming into like, and the way they interpret the first Doctor of being like, it's a little, I get the argument that people have said, like, it's weird that he's got like 60s man sensibilities if he's an alien from Gallifrey. But I also kind of like love this line where they come where Bill is like, I'll kick your arse. And he walks out, young lady, if I hear any more of that talk again, you'll have a smack bottom. And like 12 looks horrified at what he has just said. And he's just like, okay, wait, please pretend I didn't say that. I really like the inclusion of the Christmas armistice.
Yes, I do too.
What the reveal at the end is that this is set during the Christmas armistice.
That scene just like
and like I love the line. Never happened again on any battlefield anywhere. And I was just like, oh, that's so beautiful. That's so poetic. just this one moment of time that, but the Brigadier's father came from. Like, oh my god, like,
Yeah.
I also really like that the villains aren't villains. Like, this isn't an evil thing. The Doctor's just kind of stumbled into this like really nice thing that these people from the 50th billion century are trying to do. Um,
Mhm.
The juxtaposition of like, I'm so sorry I'm talking so much. I know it's like freaking
No, you're
1
good.
No,
a.m.
go
in
for
the
it.
morning, but like
Go for it.
the juxtaposition of both Doctors, of having the first Doctor being looking at the face of his of his first time regenerating. This is going to be the first time that he's going to die. This is the first time that he's going to regenerate. And saying like, I'm scared. I don't want to do it. I don't want, what's going to happen? What am I going to be? Like, this isn't something that I want to happen. And the 12th Doctor being like, I've lived too long. It's a little selfish that he just got a new regeneration cycle and he's like, I'm done. But
Yeah.
he's just kind of like, I've lived for billions of years at this point. I know it was only a day, but it was 4 billion years worth of a day that I have already lived. And I'm like, I'm tired. It's over. And the banter between the two, is so funny. Like when they're talking about like, why is the TARDIS bigger? It's like, oh, all the years are bigger on the inside. You try sucking your tummy in so all the time. The brandy bit is funny. I really love the idea also of like memory that Moffat is playing with here, which is that, because like the Doctor is like, I don't trust that you're Bill Potts. And he's like, well, I am. I've got all of her memories. That's all people are at the end of the time. At the end of the day, we're all memories. And the Doctor is kind of, like, that's like, the Doctor is like, yeah, you're right. And I'm overburdened by mine. I'm ready to just, can't I rest?
Yeah.
Can't I know peace? Must I keep going on? The other thing that I wanted to kind of bring up about that was when it comes to Bill, there's this great line that she has early in the season. The Doctor has early in the season, like, I serve at the pleasure of the human race.
Right.
And she's and he's having this thing who's like, what would Bill Potts tell me to do? Simple. Serve at the pleasure of the human race.
Mhm.
And that kind of like sets the whole thing going. Man, I really like this episode. And I just wasted your time for like 5-10 minutes on it.
It wasn't a waste. That's what we're here to do, is share what we like about these things.
I know, but like, I could go on about, I could write dissertations about Twice Upon a Time and how wonderful and perfect it is and brilliant, and just, I think it's the best regeneration episode. It's got the best regeneration speech where Capaldi is
I agree with that.
running around the TARDIS to just kind of like,
oh my god, that speech
so good.
kills me every time.
What I love about that speech is that it very much feels like, whether he's trying to kind of course correct at the end or not, Moffat kind of throwing everything that he's like, if I wanted you to know what I want you to take away from Doctor Who, what I think is important about Doctor Who, let me word vomit it at you real quick via Capaldi. And like, I think there's a lot of, I don't know, Moffat, I don't know how true this is. I feel like there's a lot of, because he is such a fan, as they all are, all the showrunners have been big fans of Doctor Who in the modern era. I think there's a sense of, because of the highs that it got taken to, the kind of out of his control that it got brought up to in that height, and then the kind of backlash as it was winding out of Smith into Capaldi, and people weren't vibing with it and saying like it lost something. And it does feel like, especially when we were talking about the season, how the season scaled, feels like it scaled even further down and focusing on like this professor, this relationship. It wasn't doing these big bombastic things. And you get to the end, you get to Capaldi's regeneration, and he's like, I really feel like maybe Moffat felt that he lost the the lead a little bit in his show running of Doctor Who, and I feel like, not that he regrets ever doing it, but it feels like there's a remorse about the time that he spent on it that is coming out through Capaldi's goodbye of like, I think I didn't spend as much time saying the things I wanted to say here, and these are the things I wanted to say, and it makes the passing of Capaldi's character feel all the more potent and powerful, because it does feel like, I would argue even more so than when Davies left with Tennant, Moffat in a way saying a goodbye to his era of Doctor Who, and in a way where he's like kind of carrying the criticism and the successes at the same time.
Yeah. I'll never forget. Laugh hard, run fast, be kind.
Yeah. And I think that's his intention, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The line that sticks to me that stuck with me the most was always try to be nice but never fail to be kind.
Oh yeah, that's my favorite one.
That line to me, just like, when I heard it, it literally stuck with me to the point that, like, in day-to-day life, it will pop up in my mind and I'll be like, got it, right, be kind.
Yeah.
And it just like, oh man, it's so good.
And real quick, Brandon, I think this is also Capaldi rubbing off on Moffat throughout the time as well. We know that there's a lot of Capaldi in this. What Capaldi wanted to do, as we alluded to earlier, with the like wanting to make the Doctor accessible for poor kids to dress up as, all kinds of things that were important to him. I think the be kind influence also comes from Capaldi's like connection to the character, what he wants to express with it, and that rubbing in with what Moffat's wanting to do. And it feels like you go so far away from where Moffat started with the Doctor, and like we've talked about before, that he feels like a showrunner who came in and like has always wanted to be the Doctor, right? That's represented through Clara a lot, and certainly through the portrayal of Matt Smith. And it feels like you get to this last season and he's really worked himself, kind of removed himself away from that ego idea. And like, I really want the Doctor to do what the Doctor did for me, and teach something and share something and inspire something. And I think it's a bummer that it took until the second and really this season of Capaldi's run for him to get there, and 6 seasons of him running the show, for him to get to this, because I would have watched 3 more seasons in this vein of the desire of what he wanted to do with Capaldi.
Yeah, it was always kind of my I know, I think you feel the same way, Sparkz, that we didn't get a second season with Bill and Nardole. We didn't get we didn't get another. It's not that Capaldi really hit a stride in his third season. It is exactly as you said. Like, this is the show that Moffat deserved. This season proves that Moffat should have always been writing the show in this way. And I would have at least liked another season where he got the chance to do so.
I really enjoy what the last 2 seasons of Capaldi's run do as far as showing Moffat as a showrunner and writer, is that I think the second season shows a lot of what Moffat has been doing, but really well. Like, I'm like, hey, the stuff that you've already been doing, the stuff that you've kind of like done, the tropes, all that, they're all in here. This is really a Moffat season, but you know what? You did it really well.
Yeah.
And it feels like such a good, like, oh, I've got it down. This is what I do. Where do I go from here? And the third season being that, let's peel back, let's remove, let's go away from all these things that I kind of did for the last time in the previous season. It shows a lot, kind of the range that he has, and kind of that, like, really how things work and what happens when you really try to remove yourself from trying to be in the show.
Sure.
pointedly
couple
with
of last.
pointedly with Twice Upon a Time, I'm really glad that Moffat made the decision to close the loop on Clara here. And it's such a important and powerful emotional moment when it says, I'm going to give you a gift, Doctor. And the gift is the restoration of Clara to his memories and how much that means to him.
Bless you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think, like, if you hadn't had that moment, I would still like Twice Upon a Time. I would still like this last season. I would think like the arc was still really good, but I would feel like there was a hole. And letting Capaldi have that moment where he's like, Clara, you're back. You're in my memories. And especially because it's Capaldi playing it is so sweet.
There's another kind of thing that I want to mention. Two little last notes that I really like about this episode. Well, actually, one is about the series as a whole. The first one is silly, but I like how the "don't look at my browser history" thing comes to a close with like the sunglasses on David Bradley, and he's like, "What's browser history? Don't look at that."
Yeah.
But also, here's something that's really superficial and really silly that I really love about Capaldi. It's how he flips the switch on the TARDIS. How he like takes the thing for whatever reason. The way he does it, like that's my favorite. I love it so much. Watching this TARDIS be destroyed hurt a lot more than watching Tennant's TARDIS get destroyed.
Yeah, I mean, this is a beautiful TARDIS interior.
This is such a good TARDIS.
Very iconic.
Yeah, I really love this TARDIS interior. It is my number one TARDIS interior of Modern Who. It's hard for me to think like that it should ever be different than this.
Yeah, me too. Like this is the definitive TARDIS interior for me because like it's got all the stuff around the things and and whatnot.
It feels lived in.
Yeah, it feels like a home. It feels like his home.
Which other TARDISes don't really. It alludes to like other rooms and like space, but this one's like, oh yeah, this is a space that's used.
That's so true. I'm thinking
chalkboard.
I'm thinking about literally every other TARDIS interior, and like none of them feel as like. Honestly, like Moffat has maybe the best interiors for the sense of what you're talking about, where it feels like it's put aside aesthetics, like it does feel like a place you live in, not just like here's the console.
Yeah, one of the things I always liked about Matt Smith was that he was always kind of digging around in the bottom of the console, like working on stuff. Like it really made it feel like this was something he just constantly does. Not just any old machine, but something that it's very important to him, something that he lives in. I really
Doctor Who's really just a guy with a van.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah.
Hey man, you want to go solve some mysteries?
I really like Capaldi as the Doctor. Like I said at the top, he is my favorite Doctor. His third season is incredible from start to finish, I believe. Twice Upon a Time. He's got one line that I do also want to highlight in Twice Upon a Time, which is that where he's like, oh, silly old universe. There it is, always getting into trouble. Well, what's one more life? What's one more lifetime gonna kill? Except me. And he just kind of has this moment where he's really like the Doctor at this point is starting to come to terms with the fact that regeneration doesn't mean death. It means change. This is something that he's starting to develop a path that we start to see that we actually see come with Jodie Whitaker's regeneration. And then once again, when 14 regenerates, but he's still at this point kind of like, like I keep changing and and like I'll be another person, and I don't know if I want to do that again. This will be my like, who knows how many times this has been. How many more do I have to do before I'm allowed to rest? It's just really, and like the idea of like he's not really seeing it as a death per se, but as a as a forced continuation of life. And at this point he's getting tired, and he's not sure if he wants to have that. He's not sure if he wants to continue. And
Right.
I really like that.
Yeah, I do too. And certainly like Tennant's 14th Doctor seems to pick up a lot of those threads as well.
Yeah, I think honestly, I thought 13 also for the most part, but like 14 especially, like having that complete, like she even says like, look, real quick spoilers for the 14th for 14th Doctor's Generation episode, when he says it's not a death. He even says that to Donna, it's not a death.
Right.
Which I really liked. But anyway,
Yeah,
I digress.
Um,
All right.
yeah, I wanna just kind of wrap up and mention that Capaldi also has my favorite Doctor. To me, is the only one that has felt like the Doctor.
Yeah.
Not that the other ones are bad doctors, that they don't, that they don't feel like the Doctor. It's just, to me personally, Capaldi brings this sense of like, just a sense that when I see him, when he interacts with people, when he has the kind of the stage, I'm like, oh yeah, that's the Doctor.
Yeah.
And
He defines
the
it.
others, he defines it, while the others don't really hit that same chord with me as Capaldi does.
I think Tennant did until Capaldi came around in his second and third
Yeah.
seasons. I was like,
Yeah.
well, Tennant's defined the Doctor.
Yeah.
And I'd stand by that. Like, I think he defined something, and like, I think Capaldi is bringing some of the best, when he's at his best, is bringing some of the best of like things that Tennant did well and things that classic Doctors did well. But I think he's pulling, I don't think he's not pulling from Tennant. I think he's well aware of what Tennant did and he's adding to it.
Yeah, of course.
And you can feel that in his performance, and he's adding to classic stuff as well.
Yeah. And I mean, there's very little that can really compete with Tennant just as a mythos. But man, Capaldi just really, to me, was like, oh wow, okay. This is just the Doctor. This is, this isn't someone playing the Doctor. This isn't an actor. This is like literally like, oh, okay. He is this character. Which was great. It was great to see his entire run. I love every moment that he like takes a step back and is kind. Is just like so heartwarming. It hits every time where I'm like, this isn't like pretending. This isn't, anything. It's just genuinely kind.
When he gets over the hug thing, because in the first season he's not hugging, but then it gets progressive, much better. Culminating in one of my favorite moments when Bill shows up in Twice Upon a Time, and he's David, the first Doctor's out there talking and pretending, being the Doctor, and then he hears Bill's voice and he runs out of the TARDIS, and they embrace.
Yeah.
It's just such a good moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That wouldn't work if it was still season 1 Capaldi. It would, his first season.
Not at all. Yeah, he shows so much growth. He probably shows the most growth of any of the Doctors in the modern age across his run. Again, obviously, like there's the change in personality and character, but there's also just like how he changes what he cares about, how he changes how he presents himself, how he prioritizes, how he learns from others and from himself. It's just not something we see all the other Doctors do as much. Tennant, for all the great qualities of his, and like there is an arc there, I'm not disputing that, but he's fairly consistent across his run as the 10th Doctor. And the 11th Doctor has some shifts, but not nearly as much as what's going on here with Capaldi. I think there's just such a broad range of where the Doctor as a character gets taken. And that's very special in this era.
I think Capaldi as an actor also shaped Moffat as a writer.
Yes,
specifically as the Doctor Who showrunner. Moffat had this issue during Matt Smith that if you were watching some of his other things, you kind of picked up on, which is that he didn't believe that people changed. he felt very strongly, at least in his writing. I don't know Moffat as a person, but in his writing, it seemed like he felt very strongly that people inherently stayed the same throughout their entire lives. And he took that a lot to Matt Smith's Doctor, which is why, for the most part, Matt Smith stays pretty static. And it ultimately is where the idea for the War Doctor comes from, because he has an interview, which is a lot of where this kind of like, again, I'm extrapolating. I don't know the man. He's not as open, as Sparkz said, as Russell T Davies is about his time on Doctor Who. But the War Doctor came from a point that he's mentioned in an interview that he could not see that the Eighth Doctor could get to the point where he would fight in a war. So the only way that the Doctor could do so would be to regenerate, because that's the only way the Doctor changes. The Doctor changes by regenerating. They don't have character arcs, they regenerate. And that seems to have shifted completely by the time Capaldi comes on board. Because Capaldi, Missy, there's so many instances where Moffat is exploring the idea of how events can change people, how just the very idea that you want to change could change people. There's such a much more of an emphasis on change by the time we get to Capaldi's second and third season, on how people can actually change within their lifetime. And I think that ultimately ended up being a very good experience for Moffat, that helped him as a writer.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. I don't have much more to add to that. I think you're right, that the secret sauce for Moffat as a showrunner, not necessarily as a writer all the time, but a showrunner certainly, lied in these last two seasons. And it's a shame that like it's at the very end. I'm really glad that we're at a point where you, Brandon, in particular, who were very down on Moffat and stepped entirely away from Doctor Who because of it, have come back to the show and embrace these last two seasons. What a wonderful thing it is that somehow still Capaldi could emerge as your favorite in this Moffat era, is really special. And like, not something like, go back like 4 or 5 years and it's not something you would have thought would have happened.
No, I mean, you're right. Like, I was very burnt out on the show. I just wasn't enjoying what Moffat was doing. And even like, I still don't really enjoy the stuff that I watched, but even now I can look at it with a much more fresh perspective. I mean, it's been years, that I saw it when I was supposed to, like that's very much what happened. Like I wasn't receptive to it at the time, and I have become receptive to it with age.
Yeah.
I'm really glad I was able to find a lot of enjoyment in these.
Me too. I also had like a stopgap in the Capaldi run and had taken a break, and when I returned, it was really wonderful to return to such wonderful stuff, because I returned in the midst of his second season and was like, oh my god. I'm Doctor Who's back, baby. and I rode that high for a while, and then I hit the Chibnall era.
Okay,
and things changed.
I know. I do have to ask, and you can feel free to cut this out if you'd like. Could we?
I will do it if you want to, but like we're signing up for another hour and a half of discussion minimum. Like, I don't think it's feasible, and I should have known it going in that like we're gonna have too much to rant about with Whitaker, and we all like Capaldi too much. We were gonna go long.
I say we break this up. We try to squeeze in one more, just you and I, Sparkz, with Whitaker.
No, God, no. I want Xander there even for just the beginning, because I just want him to go, what are you talking about? I truly like, just as a little tease of the Whitaker era. Xander, did you know that the hybrid prophecy was fulfilled because the Master combined with the Codex of the Cybermen and became a hybrid himself and stood on the ruins of Gallifrey?
Wait, what?
That happens in Whitaker's era. Am I saying that they intended to follow up on that hybrid prophecy? No, I am not. They don't acknowledge it at all, yet somehow it happens.
I was going to ask if the Master appeared in the Whitaker series, but...
Oh, Xander, it's so bad. It's so bad.
So they fuse with the Cybermen, or they become part Cybermen?
All right, we're doing this. Okay, look. Okay, so here's the thing.
Wait, just for one generation, or is this kind of like a
There's a separate
who they
plot
are
device.
now?
There's a separate plot device that's introduced in the second season of Whitaker's run, that controls the Cybermen, and the Master is able to steal it and fuse himself with it. This is after he has already regenerated from Missy.
We don't know that.
It's the text of the as much as you and I wish it weren't true, the text of this show.
Why are you pretending that like they can't have had their memory wiped?
Because that's not the intention of the episode. Now look, Sparkz. I love your headcanon. It's my headcanon too, but it is at the end of the day a headcanon.
Okay, wait. So they fused in whatever way that means.
No, but here's the thing.
With this thing that controls. So they're not part Cybermen. They just control the Cybermen now.
It's vague. But the Master. Here's the biggest flub with the Master. Okay, we're just gonna single this out to the Master because I've had a lot of time to think about this. And I'll dive more into it if we ever get back to this. The thing is, there is a path to do a post Missy Master. There is. You can do something interesting of someone maybe relapsing. We've already established that regeneration changes a Time Lord's brain chemistry. So perhaps the Master then just there's something that can be done. But the problem with Chibnall is that he was so unwilling to yes and where the Master could have gone after this, even if because he wanted the Master to be a villain, an outright villain again. So he creates this idea that the Master has discovered that the Doctor is not a Time Lord, is not Gallifreyan. She is in fact something called the Timeless Child, of which all of regeneration comes from her. So Time Lords have developed regeneration because of their discovery of the Timeless Child, which has driven the Master absolutely batshit insane to the point that he destroys Gallifrey and then turns the corpses of the Time Lords into Cybermen that he then controls while he is allowing the Matrix of Gallifrey, which is something from the original show, to info dump what the Timeless Child is and how the Doctor is actually much older than we ever thought possible, with many more regenerations than we ever thought possible. And so the thing is, like,
stop, pause.
Yes. This is one episode.
This is why I want him on.
Pause. Okay. Quick rewind. So Gallifrey's dead now again?
Yes.
Oh, just straight up again.
Again.
Dead with Time Lord Cybermen.
Yep.
Yeah.
Who are Cybermen who can regenerate?
Right. Okay. Well, aside from that being terrifying and really difficult to write for in the future, we went through a whole arc of Gallifrey being important and then not important and then kind of hidden and finally kind of just back so that it could kind of lose that kind of level of like Gallifrey's this mystical, like important, thing that we can't really know of or see, when in like Classic Who it was just like the planet, whatever. I was so ready for it just to be back to being like, yeah, this is just Gallifrey. And it doesn't have to be this like mystical, super powerful, like plot device. It's just Gallifrey. And now you're telling me again, it's just this like, this is Gallifrey's dead. Everyone's Cybermen, more trauma. Everything sucks. Okay. And here's the thing that really bothers me. So Moffat has this thing where when he writes, the main character is the most special person in the world. Everything is about them. There is something about them that just makes them big main character energy, and nothing happens plot-wise that is not revolving around either caused by or in relation to their main character. I was really happy to kind of see that moving and getting away from that. And you're telling me we're back to the Doctor's the most special, super wonderful, like very important person in all the whole like universe, and no one's more important than them. Bullshit.
That's the thing that really bugs me about it. To go back to like something that I don't really love, that Sparkz has a really good opinion on, I believe, which is that the first Doctor gives a explanation for why they ran away from Gallifrey in Twice Upon a Time. I didn't really love the explanation of like, it doesn't make sense why evil always loses when it should always win. The idea of like giving the Doctor purpose for the initial instinct of like running away makes the Doctor, I think, too important. And I always kind of like the idea of the Doctor. We talked about it with Matt Smith, right? That the Doctor is just a kind dude with a time machine that's just traveling the universe and exploring things and just doing what they can to help.
You said Twice Upon a Time. Are you talking about the Clara thing?
No, I'm talking about when Bill asks the first Doctor, "Why'd you leave Gallifrey?"
Okay.
And then and that's fine, but that's fine. Sparkz has a really good explanation for it that I think is probably true. But then you have this thing where then you create this idea of the timeless child, which isn't the only thing that changes. But you're right; it turns the Doctor once again into the not just a Time Lord, not just any Time Lord, the most important Time Lord in all of history.
Yeah, the one that gives everybody else the ability to have regenerations.
Yes.
Because I'm assuming they were already time travelers.
So what we know, I'm just going to explain to you the Timeless Child now. Someone called Tecteun, who's a Gallifreyan before they were called Gallifrey, finds a young girl outside of a wormhole, stranded or waiting, we don't really know, and takes her back to Gallifrey to raise her as her own. She falls off a cliff and regenerates. And the Tecteun is like, what the fuck? And is like, cool, I'm going to figure out what the hell happens. Runs experiment after experiment after experiment, making this girl regenerate over and over and over again until she can finally figure out how to give the power of regeneration to herself, which she finally does. And then she gifts it to the rest of Gallifrey. She becomes a character that was originally called the Other in the Seventh Doctor, that the Seventh Doctor was originally going to be. That was going to be the reveal of a Seventh Doctor story, that he was the Other. And then, but now that's Tecteun. Now Tecteun has given Rassilon and Omega, two of the other founders of Time Lord Society, the power to regenerate, which gives all the Time Lord Society the power to regenerate. So now, and then, now the Doctor is recruited by something called Division, where she now becomes this like secret spy, and then she is retired from Division many years later, and her memory is wiped. She is turned into a baby, given to a family, and grows up to be the Doctor. And that's the Timeless Child storyline.
That's dumb.
Yeah. And like, I don't hate it. Inherently, I don't hate the idea of the Timeless Child, because what it's meant to do is give the Doctor unlimited regenerations, right? Create a way for the storyline of Doctor Who to continue forever.
I'll jump in here to say that we know that part of the reason Chibnall wanted to do this during Jodie Whitaker's era in particular was to expunge the idea that the Doctor started as a white man. Like, feel about that however you want, but it's a young colored girl who we first see her as when she's found by Tecteun. And then there are multiple diverse regenerations that we see when the experimentations are happening of young kids who are all kinds of ethnicities and both genders and all that stuff. And so it was meant to like broaden the idea of what the Doctor can be at the same time that we were embracing Jodie Whitaker. I understand that was the intent of why they wanted to do it. They wanted to bust open that door to diversity in a retconny way.
So here's my thing.
It's a hat on a hat.
I get the argument first with Brandon. I get the argument of being like, oh, now they have unlimited regenerations. Okay. They still have 11 more right now.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, you don't have to worry about that being a problem for another like 50 years.
Isn't there not a number? I thought when they gave Matt Smith more, they didn't even quantify how many.
I think it's implied that's just a new cycle, but I think you're right. Like it was never said. It was never said definitively in the show. It could have just been whatever.
Yeah, so it's like, do you need to create? Because the thing is, like, I get it. I understand wanting to create, like, add on something to the lore of Doctor Who, not just create like a doctor and do the run, but kind of like add something to it. I understand that kind of like want to kind of like build the new Who sort of like, background and mythos. But man, when you change something that drastically, that like core, I feel like it's not something you just do. It's just like there has to, like, people read this and they were like, yeah, you're good. And it went through like checks, and it's like, man, if you're gonna do it in a way that is like, I don't know. I'm not against it. I'm not against the idea of like something in this vein. I don't like how it influences the Doctor into, oh, you are just the special.
Yeah. So far, Davies is already kind of doing something with it that I think is kind of interesting. But my biggest issue with the Timeless Child idea is that it becomes, because not only have you said that this is the Timeless Child, but you've also created the idea of the fugitive Doctor with the division. They kind of keep like, it becomes a lot where it should have been like the War Doctor was just the War Doctor. Like this was just a regeneration we didn't know, now revealed to us. This is the one who fought in the Time War. That's one thing. This is like 5 things wrapped up in one big thing with like 5 little things inside of it, and you're like, this is too much. You've done too much here.
I mean, hey, I haven't seen it, so I mean, what do I know? Maybe it's great.
And the thing about the Master, like he shows up in the second season, and the end of the episode is a really good reveal. I think the end of the first episode is a really good reveal of like, oh, I guess I'm found out. Surprise, it's me. Because at the time we've been following a character who then it is revealed as the Master. Like a friend of the Doctor is revealed to be the Master, and it's like at the moment it's like, oh shit, it's the Master. They're alive? How'd this happen? Really interesting. I'm like, okay, what are you gonna do? What is a post Missy Master gonna look like? What are you gonna do? And then the next episode immediately destroys that, and it's just like, actually, this new version of the Master is basically just what John Sim was doing without any nuance and a lot of crack. And I'm just and then. There are things I genuinely like in the Jodie Whitaker era. I want to be clear about this. And the big thing is I love Jodie Whitaker as the Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we should probably end it there because I could go on and on about things I don't like. And I want to have a more nuanced discussion.
This is why I know it would be longer.
I don't like that this is what happens with the Master. I'm so viscerally against this.
Here's the thing. It is not Chibnall's intention that the Spy Master is post Missy. It's not. It's unfortunate, but it's not. It is, however, my 100% headcanon that is what this is. And I know Sparkz is with me.
This can't, to me, this can't be the one after Missy, because textually they say Missy can't regenerate and that Missy dies. And it's the end of the Master's timeline. And so as far as I'm concerned, I don't give a shit how it happens, because the whole point, Xander, is just like, it can't possibly be a previous version of the Master, is what people say, because this Master knows about the Timeless Child thing and destroyed Gallifrey because of it. And they're like, why would a later version of the Master not retain that information, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, people have memories taken away all the time in Doctor Who. All the time this happens.
The Doctor doesn't remember being in Division. I mean, you know.
Oh, and that's absolutely true. And I wish that was Chibnall's intention, was that this was a previous version of the Master between Missy and Saxon, and that'd be really interesting and really fun to kind of see where we go from here. It unfortunately isn't Chibnall's thing, because it is the official stance of the BBC that it goes from Missy to the Spy Master, because Big Finish has had to bend over backwards to make that make sense, because they had to create a new version of the Master between Missy and the new and the Darwin Master. I think is his name, Darwin, called the Lumiat. So okay. Here's the thing. Here's what Big Finish had to do. And Big Finish, by the way, beta canon does not necessarily, but they have to do what BBC tells them to do. So if BBC is like, hey, this Master cannot be before Missy, it has to be after, that's our official stance, then they have to be like, okay, well, there's a thing that allowed Missy to prolong her life by splitting, by taking out her good parts and creating a new character called the Lumiat. So that's the good version, and then she was able to regenerate. So which blah, blah, blah. And so like they had to like bend over backwards to make it make sense. And I'm like, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, you really didn't need to do that. You could have textually made it make sense that it was before Missy. And so like, again, headcanon are your own personal canon. As Ken Knapsack always says, your own personal canon is the only one that matters. My argument for the Darwin Master is based on textual arguments alone, but I want it known that my headcanon, my personal canon, the one that matters to me, is that the Darwin Master is set prior to Missy. Anything you hear me argue in the episode itself will be based on the textual accounts from the BBC, but I want it known that my headcanon is I disagree with that.
Yeah. So, and I'm sorry this is going to be difficult to cut around, but
I'm not cutting this.
I'm guessing this is where I leave and it's cut, and then you guys continue the actual.
No, it's a new episode.
No.
Good night, guys. Stay fake nerds.
It's already a new episode right now, and then we're gonna cut, and it's gonna be the end of the episode we already did.
No. Well, this is just this, and then we'll be back for more Whitaker, because there's a lot.
Okay.
There's a lot more praise to be said, and there's a lot of.
I'm sure. Yeah, just to kind of like go back to our roots, that long bygone era, the 12th Doctor.
Did we depress you?
No.
I feel like we depressed you.
So for Capaldi's run, wrap up before we say our goodbyes. In one word.
Incredible. Fantastic.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, it's
Alonzi.
It's there's a lot of, like, you said like one word, and there's a lot of like praise I want to heap at it with just one word, but like I feel like that's doing a disservice to the fact that I think there's a lot of problems in the first season for Capaldi's run that lead up to it. Like, I can't say that the whole thing is fantastic. I think Capaldi is brilliant as the Doctor. So I'll say that. I think he's brilliant, and I think even when he's fighting against what his instincts or the text are, I still think he's brilliant.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I don't think I can say much more than I already have.
Yeah.
Literally, my throat hurts.
Yeah. Let's wrap it up.
Yeah.
Wait, you have to give one word.
Oh, breathtaking.
Oh, okay. That's
All right, guys.
that's an oxygen joke for those who are paying attention.
All right, guys, that'll do it. Thank you for sticking around. Sorry this one went so long. It could have been
I'm not
longer.
sorry.
We spared you that.
Are you
Okay.
here? Are you still here? It's been 3 hours. Who's still here?
Here's the thing. It's really late. You guys know where to find us, fakenerdpodcast.com for everything, all the socials and whatnot. You can find me at BT McClure on Instagram and Twitter. Sometimes writing for atomiceaton.com. Sparkz, where can people find you?
You can find me at Sparkz on Instagram and Twitter, SPARKZ Witty, just being a #1 fan of Mr. Peter Capaldi.
And Xander, where can people find you?
You can't find me. I refuse. You know, Nate, I challenge you. Find me.
At Hockey in the box.
It's right there. It's right on the bottom of the screen. All right, guys. That'll do it. Unless you actually want to say it, Xander.
No.
All right, guys. That'll do it. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to this channel, subscribe on your podcatcher of choice, rate and review wherever you get us. We greatly appreciate it. Like this video, subscribe to this channel. I already said that. And until next time you see us, because we will be back to talk about Jodie Whitaker at some point down the line, hopefully relatively soon. We'll see.
And the rest.
And sure, yeah, if you want, stay fake nerds.